The champagne glass shattered against marble, crystalline shards scattering like Maya's last shred of dignity. She stood frozen in the doorway of Ethan Caldwell's private office, his laughter still echoing through the mahogany-paneled room. 20 grand says she doesn't even own a dress that costs more than her rent, his CFO had sneered. Ethan's response cut deeper. Make it 30. This will be the most entertaining night of the season. They hadn't seen her, didn't know she'd heard every word. But in that moment, something inside Maya Brooks didn't break. It forged into steel. They wanted a show? She'd give them one they'd never forget. If you're ready to witness how one woman turned humiliation into her greatest weapon, stay with me until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Maya's hands trembled as she closed the heavy oak door with deliberate silence, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for escape. The corridor stretched before her, endless, suffocating, lined with abstract art worth more than her mother's entire medical debt. She pressed her back against the cool wall, eyes squeezed shut, willing herself not to cry. Not here, not where security cameras might capture her breaking. Breathe, she commanded herself, just breathe. But the words kept replaying, each syllable a fresh wound. Come on, Ethan, you can't seriously expect Maya to show up at the Grandview Gala. She probably thinks Chanel is a cable network. The explosion of male laughter that followed had been bad enough. What came next was worse. Gentlemen, gentlemen! Ethan's voice, smooth as aged whiskey, the same voice that had spent 2 years issuing her instructions with distant politeness. I think you're underestimating the entertainment value here. Maya is charmingly unaware of how these events work. Watching her navigate the social dynamics will be priceless. You're actually going to invite her? That was Marcus Chen, Ethan's CFO, whose condescension Maya had endured through countless budget meetings. Already did, this morning, in fact. Told her she's been working so hard she deserves a night out. And she accepted? Jennifer Blackwood's voice dripped with disbelief. Ethan, she'll be eaten alive. Those women will tear her apart in under 10 minutes. Which is exactly why I set the over-under at 8 minutes. Who wants in? The sound of money changing hands, actual cash, bills snapping, had been what finally sent Maya retreating from her position near the door. She'd only come upstairs to deliver the updated donor list for the gala. Now she wished she'd sent it by email. Now, standing in the hallway with her entire world tilting on its axis, Maya forced her eyes open. The building spread around her in all its glass and steel glory. 47 floors of Caldwell Industries, a tech empire built on artificial intelligence and venture capital. From the outside, it gleamed like a monument to innovation. From the inside, it was a battlefield where people like her were collateral damage. She'd worked here for 2 years, 7 months, and 13 days. Started as a temp handling data entry, worked her way to executive assistant through sheer competence in 70-hour weeks. She knew Ethan's schedule better than he did, anticipated his needs before he voiced them, made herself indispensable through quiet efficiency. And he saw her as entertainment, a joke, a bet. Maya walked toward the elevator on legs that felt disconnected from her body. Her reflection caught in the polished doors, brown hair pulled into a practical bun, minimal makeup, a charcoal blazer and pencil skirt from Target's clearance rack. Professional. Forgettable. Exactly what an assistant was supposed to be. The elevator dinged. Empty, thank God. She stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor, watching the numbers descend as her mind raced. She could quit, should quit, march back up there tomorrow morning, slam her resignation on Ethan's imported Italian desk, and walk out with her head high. Except she couldn't. The medical bills spread across her kitchen table flashed through her mind. Statements in red, past due notices, payment plan letters. Her mother's stage 3 diagnosis had come 18 months ago, turning Maya's life into a careful equation. Rent plus utilities, plus groceries, plus chemotherapy, plus radiation, plus experimental treatments equals every penny she earned, plus most of what she didn't have. Caldwell Industries offered the best health insurance she'd ever seen. Losing this job meant losing coverage for her mother's treatment. It meant watching the woman who'd raised her alone, who'd worked 3 jobs to put Maya through community college, slowly deteriorate because her daughter's pride couldn't survive a little humiliation. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, all soaring ceilings and water features designed to intimidate. Maya walked past the security desk with a forced smile, pushed through the revolving doors into Seattle's gray afternoon, and finally, let herself feel the full weight of it. They'd made her a spectacle, a gambling opportunity. $20,000, no, 30, on whether she'd embarrass herself badly enough to satisfy their boredom. The walk to the bus stop blurred. Maya found herself on the number 7 line, squeezed between a teenager with headphones and an elderly man reading a newspaper, her mind spinning through scenarios. She could decline the invitation, claim she was sick, let them win by default. But something hot and sharp was crystallizing in her chest, something that felt dangerous and thrilling and absolutely reckless. What if she didn't decline? What if she showed up and proved them all catastrophically wrong? The thought took root, growing tendrils through her shock and hurt. Maya pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and opened the email Ethan had sent that morning, the invitation she'd read 3 times in delighted disbelief before accepting. Maya, your dedication to Caldwell Industries hasn't gone unnoticed. I'd like to extend a personal invitation to the Grandview Charity Gala this Saturday as my guest. Consider it a well-deserved evening out. The event benefits the Children's Medical Research Foundation, a cause I believe you'll appreciate given your interest in healthcare accessibility. Formal attire required. I'll have a car arranged for 7 p.m. Ethan. She'd thought it was a gesture of appreciation, maybe even the first sign that he saw her as more than furniture. God, she'd been stupid. The bus lurched to her stop in Greenwood, a neighborhood where the rent was almost manageable and the buildings showed their age. Maya climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, unlocked the door with the key that sometimes stuck, and dropped her bag on the sagging couch. Maya, that you, honey? Her mother's voice drifted from the bedroom, weak but alert. Maya plastered on a smile and pushed open the door. Sarah Brooks sat propped against pillows, a book resting in her lap. The headscarf covered where chemotherapy had taken her hair, but couldn't hide the gauntness in her cheeks or the exhaustion that lived permanently in her eyes. She was 53 but looked 70. How are you feeling? Maya crossed to the bed, pressed a kiss to her mother's forehead. Better today. The new anti-nausea medication is helping. Sarah studied her daughter's face with the intensity only mothers possessed. Something happened. Maya sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. Work stuff. Nothing important. Maya Christine Brooks. Her mother's voice sharpened. I may be sick, but I'm not blind. What happened? So Maya told her. Everything. The overheard conversation, the betting pool. The casual cruelty of people who probably spent more on lunch than most families spent on groceries. Her mother listened without interruption, her expression shifting from shock to anger to something harder. When Maya finished, silence hung between them. You're going to that gala, Sarah finally said. Mom, you're going, and you're going to be magnificent. Her mother's hand found Maya's, grip surprisingly strong. Do you know what I regret most in my life? All the times I let people make me small. All the rooms I didn't enter because I assumed I didn't belong. I taught you to work hard, to be smart, to be kind. But I never taught you to take up space, to demand respect instead of waiting for permission. I can't afford. There's money in my savings account, the one I've been setting aside for emergencies. Mom, that's for your treatment. This is an emergency. Sarah's eyes blazed with a fire Maya rarely saw anymore. My daughter needs armor for battle, and by God, she's going to have it. You think I want to watch you shrink yourself for people who see you as a punchline? Who make bets on your humiliation? Maya felt tears threatening again, but these were different, hotter, angrier. I don't even know where to start, she whispered. Then figure it out. Her mother squeezed her hand. You're the smartest person I know, Maya. You've been solving impossible problems since you were 10 years old. Treat this like any other challenge. Research it, plan it, execute it, and show those bastards exactly who they're dealing with. The profanity startled a laugh out of Maya. Her mother never swore. There she is, Sarah smiled. There's my fighter. That night, Maya sat at her kitchen table with her laptop in a determination that felt almost feral. The Grandview Charity Gala was in 3 days, 72 hours to transform herself from punchline to force of nature. She started with research. The gala was Seattle's most exclusive charity event, a $1,000 a plate dinner that attracted tech executives, venture capitalists, politicians, and old money families whose wealth predated the city itself. Last year's event had raised $4.2 million for children's medical research. The guest list read like a who's who of Pacific Northwest power. Maya pulled up photos from previous years, studying them with the analytical intensity she usually reserved for quarterly reports. The women wore gowns that cost more than her car, elegant, sophisticated, dripping with jewelry that was definitely not costume. They held themselves with a particular kind of confidence, the kind that came from never doubting you belonged. But Maya noticed something else too. These women weren't just decorative. The candid shots showed them in deep conversation with senators, tech CEOs, foundation directors. They wielded influence with the same ease they wore designer labels. If Maya was going to survive this night, she needed to understand that world. Not just imitate it, understand it. She opened a new tab and started a list. Dress shoes, hair makeup, research, current events, policy issues, tech industry trends, research, key attendees and their interests, posture/movement training, conversation strategies. The list grew. With each item, Maya felt the shape of her plan solidifying. This wasn't about pretending to be someone else. It was about becoming the most powerful version of herself. She worked until 3 a.m., filling a notebook with information. The political climate, recent tech acquisitions, debates around AI regulation, education reform initiatives, healthcare policy. She absorbed it all, her mind cataloging facts and connections with the same efficiency that made her invaluable at Caldwell Industries. Friday morning, Maya woke with 4 hours of sleep and absolute clarity. She called in sick, the first time in 2 years, and took the bus downtown. Her first stop was a consignment boutique in Capitol Hill that specialized in designer pieces. The owner, a woman named Diane with silver hair and shrewd eyes, listened to Maya's carefully edited story. A last-minute invitation, a limited budget, a need to look like she belonged in the city's most exclusive ballroom. "Show me what you have in mind," Diane said. Maya pulled up photos on her phone, gowns she'd spent the night studying. "Something like these, but I need to keep it under $800 total, including shoes." Diane's eyebrows rose. "For a Grandview Gala look? Honey, that's impossible." "Then make it possible." Maya met her eyes steadily. "Please, I'm a size 6. I need deep colors, jewel tones probably. Nothing too trendy that will date the look. Classic elegance. And it has to fit perfectly because I don't have time for major alterations." Something in Maya's voice must have convinced her. Diane studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Wait here." She disappeared into the back of the shop. Maya stood among racks of beautiful clothes, her heart pounding. $800 was everything her mother had saved over 5 years of careful budgeting. It was reckless. It was terrifying. It was necessary. Diane returned with 3 dresses draped over her arms. "Try these." The first was silver, beautiful but wrong. It washed Maya out, made her look like she was trying too hard. The second was red, but the cut was all wrong for her frame. The third dress made Maya stop breathing. Deep emerald silk, almost black in certain lights. The neckline was elegant without being revealing, the silhouette classic but modern. When Maya slipped it on and stepped in front of the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The dress didn't scream wealth, it whispered it, confident, understated, powerful. "That's the one," Diane said softly. "Valentino, 2 seasons old, barely worn. The woman who owned it was your exact size. Retail was $4,500. I can do $600. Maya's stomach clenched. "I need shoes too." "I know." Diane disappeared again, returning with simple black heels, elegant, timeless, with a red sole that Maya recognized. "Louboutin, 300 retail. I'll give them to you for $150. Total, $750. "Why?" Maya asked. "Why help me?" Diane smiled, but it was sad. "Because 30 years ago, I was you. Standing in a shop I couldn't afford, desperate to prove I belonged somewhere I'd been told I didn't, and a woman helped me." She began wrapping the dress in tissue paper. "Consider this paying it forward. Go to your event. Be spectacular. And when you make it, and you will, remember to help the next woman who needs it." Maya left the boutique with her dress and shoes, $50 still in her pocket, and tears she refused to shed. She had one day left. Saturday arrived with gray skies and Maya's stomach in knots. She'd spent Friday getting her hair trimmed at a beauty school where students worked for cheap, watching YouTube tutorials on makeup application until her eyes burned, and drilling herself on every piece of information she'd gathered about the gala's attendees. She knew that Senator Patricia Morrison was championing education reform, that venture capitalist David Chen had just funded 3 AI startups, that Helen Worthington, old Seattle money, sat on the board of 7 major foundations and had lost a grandson to leukemia, hence her passion for children's medical research. Maya knew their interests, their recent public statements, their known affiliations. She'd turned preparation into armor. At 5 p.m., she started getting ready. Her hands shook as she applied makeup, following the techniques she'd practiced. Foundation. Contouring. Eyes that looked natural but defined. Lips in a shade that complemented the dress without competing. Her hair she'd left down. Soft waves that took an hour with a borrowed curling iron. The kind of effortless-looking style that was anything but. The dress slipped over her head like water. The heels added 3 inches and changed her entire posture. When Maya looked in the mirror, she saw a stranger, someone confident, someone who belonged. Her mother appeared in the doorway, leaning on her walker, and gasped. "Oh, honey, took too much?" Maya turned, suddenly uncertain. "Not enough?" Sarah's eyes shimmered. "You look like you could buy that building and everyone in it. You look like power." The doorbell rang at 6:58 p.m. Maya grabbed her small clutch, borrowed from a coworker with a careful lie about a wedding, and took one last breath. "Remember," her mother called as Maya headed for the door, "you're not going there to prove you belong. You're going there to make them prove they deserve your presence. There's a difference." The town car waiting outside was exactly the kind of excess Maya had expected. The driver opened the door without comment, and she slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. As Seattle slid past the windows, Maya reviewed her strategy one final time. She would be polite but not deferential, engaged but not desperate. She would ask questions, listen carefully, and speak only when she had something valuable to contribute. She would be exactly who she was, smart, capable, and absolutely done with apologizing for it. The Grandview Hotel rose against the darkening sky, all Art Deco elegance and old money prestige. The car joined a line of identical black vehicles, depositing passengers in evening wear that collectively cost more than Maya's entire education. When her door opened, Maya stepped out into camera flashes and the murmur of the gathering crowd. She walked toward the entrance with her head high, her heart hammering, every nerve ending on fire. The lobby was spectacular, marble and gold leaf, crystal chandeliers throwing prismatic light across faces she recognized from news articles and Forbes lists. Maya took it all in with a calmness she didn't feel, following the flow of guests toward the ballroom. And then she saw him. Ethan Caldwell stood near the entrance, devastating in a custom tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, greeting arrivals with practiced charm. He was 34, runner-up for Forbes' youngest self-made billionaire, and objectively beautiful in the way that made people forgive him for things they shouldn't. He was also, Maya reminded herself, the man who'd made her a bet. She approached before she could lose her nerve. Ethan turned, his smile already forming, and froze. For 3 perfect seconds, he just stared. "Maya?" His voice cracked slightly on her name. "Good evening, Mr. Caldwell." She kept her tone professional, pleasant. "Thank you for the invitation." You look..." He stopped, seeming to catch himself. "You look beautiful." "How kind." Maya smiled with exactly 0 warmth. "Shall we go in?" She walked past him into the ballroom before he could respond, feeling his shocked gaze on her back like a physical touch. The space was magnificent, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, tables draped in white and gold, a small orchestra playing something classical and elegant. 500 people in formal wear mingled with champagne and canapes, their laughter and conversation creating a sophisticated din. Maya accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and surveyed the room with strategic precision. There, Senator Morrison talking to a group near the windows. And there, David Chen holding court by the bar. Well, the voice came from behind her, dripping with false sweetness. Ethan's assistant actually showed up. Maya turned to find Jennifer Blackwood and two other women whose names she'd memorized from her research. Jennifer wore Dior and diamonds, her blonde hair in an elaborate updo. The other two were similarly polished. Melissa Grant and Olivia Harding, both married to tech executives, both professional social climbers. "Good evening," Maya said pleasantly. "That's a lovely dress." Melissa's smile was sharp. "Rent the runway?" The insult was subtle but clear. Maya's smile never wavered. "Consignment, actually. I find that spending $4,500 on something I'll wear once says more about insecurity than style. But everyone has their priorities." The barb landed. Melissa's smile tightened. "How refreshing," Olivia chimed in. "Someone who's honest about shopping secondhand. Most people in your position try to hide it." "Only if they're ashamed." Maya met her gaze steadily. "I'm not." Before they could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. "Maya Brooks? Is that you?" She turned to find herself face to face with Senator Patricia Morrison, a woman whose face she'd studied in dozens of articles. The senator was 60, elegant, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Senator Morrison," Maya extended her hand. "It's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine. I heard you were Ethan Caldwell's secret weapon, the woman who keeps his entire empire running smoothly." Patricia shook her hand firmly. "I've been hoping to meet you." Maya felt the shock ripple through Jennifer and her friends. "You're too kind." "Not at all. I actually wanted to pick your brain about something." Patricia guided her away from the group with practiced ease. "I read that policy brief Caldwell Industries submitted on AI regulation in education. The technical analysis was impressive, but the section on implementation in underfunded districts was extraordinary. That wasn't Ethan's work, was it?" Maya's heart skipped. That brief had taken her 3 weeks of research, writing, and revision. She'd submitted it under Ethan's name because that's what assistants did. "I contributed to the research," she said carefully. "Don't be modest." Patricia smiled. "I've read enough of Ethan's writing to know his style. That brief had a different voice. A better one, frankly. Someone who actually understands how policy affects real people, not just profit margins." They talked for 20 minutes. Education reform, the challenges of implementing new technology in schools that couldn't afford basic supplies, the disconnect between Silicon Valley solutions and classroom realities. Maya found herself relaxing, her knowledge pouring out in a way it never could at Caldwell Industries, where her job was to nod and take notes. Patricia listened with genuine interest, asking sharp questions, building on Maya's ideas. When their conversation finally ended, the senator pressed a business card into her hand. "Call me," Patricia said. "I'm assembling an advisory committee on education technology. I want people who understand both the tech and the human cost. You'd be perfect." Maya tucked the card into her clutch with shaking fingers. "Thank you, Senator." As Patricia moved on to other conversations, Maya became aware of the attention. People were watching her now, whispering. The assistant who'd arrived alone and somehow ended up in a 20-minute conversation with one of the state's most influential politicians. The evening accelerated from there. David Chen approached her to discuss AI ethics, a topic where Maya's research made her surprisingly fluent. Helen Worthington wanted to know her thoughts on optimizing charitable giving for maximum impact. A tech journalist from Wired asked about her perspective on workplace culture in male-dominated industries. Maya answered every question with the confidence of someone who'd done her homework. She was charming without being obsequious, knowledgeable without being arrogant. She made people feel heard, asked follow-up questions that showed she was listening, and never, ever acted like she was grateful just to be in the room. She belonged here, not because of Ethan's invitation, but because she'd earned it through sheer competence. From across the room, Ethan watched with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. He'd tried to approach her twice, but each time she'd been deep in conversation, and he'd retreated. Good, she thought viciously. Let him watch. Let him see exactly what he'd underestimated. Dinner was announced at 8. Maya found her seat, table 3, she noted, closer to the dais than most. Ethan's doing, probably, wanting his entertainment on display. He appeared at her elbow as she sat, claiming the chair beside her. "Maya, we should talk. Mr. Caldwell." She turned to him with perfect professional courtesy. I wouldn't want to monopolize your time. I'm sure there are many important people here who need your attention. I don't care about... He stopped, jaw tightening. You're angry. Not at all. Her smile was poison sweet. I'm having a wonderful evening. Thank you again for the invitation. It's been educational. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, but before he could respond, the other seats at their table filled. Introductions were made: a federal judge, a tech CEO, a philanthropist, and their respective partners. Conversation flowed over appetizers. Maya contributed thoughtfully, building on others' points, asking questions that sparked interesting debates. She was good at this, she realized, not because she was performing, but because she was genuinely interested. These were fascinating people discussing important ideas. Midway through the main course, the philanthropist, a woman named Claire Hendricks, who ran the Children's Medical Research Foundation, turned to Maya. So you work with Ethan? Claire asked. I'm his executive assistant, yes. Maya's being modest, the federal judge interjected. I heard you basically run Caldwell Industries while Ethan takes credit. Laughter around the table. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. I assist Mr. Caldwell in executing his vision, Maya said diplomatically. It's a collaborative process. How politic? Claire studied her with interest. Tell me, what drew you to Caldwell Industries? The technology? The culture? Maya considered the question honestly. The healthcare benefits, actually. Silence. Then Claire laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. Finally, someone honest. I'm so tired of people pretending they work purely for passion. We all have bills to pay. My mother has cancer, Maya said quietly. Stage 3. The treatment would have bankrupted us without good insurance, so I found the best insurance I could and built a career around keeping it. The table went quiet. Claire reached across and squeezed Maya's hand. I'm sorry. That must be incredibly difficult. It is, Maya met her gaze, but it's also clarifying. You learn what matters, what's worth fighting for, who deserves your time and energy. She didn't look at Ethan, but she felt him tense beside her. The evening progressed. Speeches were made, donations pledged, awards given. Maya applauded in all the right places, her face a mask of polite interest even as her mind spun with the surrealness of it all. She was doing it, actually doing it, not just surviving, but thriving. When the orchestra began playing and couples moved to the dance floor, Maya excused herself. She needed air, needed a moment to process before the night ended. She found a balcony overlooking the city, deserted, blessedly quiet. The lights of Seattle spread before her like scattered diamonds, beautiful and distant. There you are. Maya's shoulders stiffened. She didn't turn. I've been looking for you, Ethan said, stepping onto the balcony. Maya, please, we need to talk. About what? She kept her gaze on the city. I'm fulfilling my obligation. Attending your event. Being, what was the word? Entertaining? She heard his sharp intake of breath. You heard us. It wasn't a question. Every word. Now she turned, let him see the full weight of her anger. $20,000. No, 30. That's apparently what my humiliation is worth. I hope you got your money's worth tonight, Mr. Caldwell. Ethan's face had gone pale. Maya, that wasn't what? Wasn't cruel? Wasn't the truth? You invited me here as a joke. Made me a bet. Assumed I'd fail spectacularly enough to make your friends laugh. Her voice stayed level, controlled, even as fury pounded through her veins. What you didn't count on is that I'm actually good at this. That maybe the woman you've been overlooking for 2 years is more than just a competent assistant. I know that. He stepped closer. God, Maya, watching you tonight. Watching me what? Prove I'm human? That I have value beyond scheduling your meetings and managing your calendar? She laughed bitterly. 2 years, Ethan. I've worked beside you for 2 years. I've saved your company from disasters, made you look good in front of investors, sacrificed my life to make yours easier, and you never once really saw me. Not until I showed up in a dress expensive enough to pass your circle's arbitrary standards. That's not fair. Fair? Her composure finally cracked. You want to talk about fair? I work 70-hour weeks for a salary that barely covers my mother's medical bills. I've canceled dates, missed birthdays, given up every piece of my personal life to be available whenever you need me, and you turned me into entertainment. So no, Ethan, I don't particularly care about what's fair to you right now. She moved to walk past him. His hand caught her arm, gentle, but enough to stop her. You're right, he said quietly. About all of it. I was an asshole. I took you for granted. I let my friends turn you into a joke because I was too busy being entitled and careless to think about how it would feel from your side. He released her arm but didn't step back. I'm sorry, Maya. Truly. You deserved better. You deserve better. Maya wanted to stay angry. Anger was clean, simple, protective, but the sincerity in his voice complicated things. I don't know what you want me to say, she whispered. Nothing. I don't deserve your forgiveness. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. I just needed you to know that watching you tonight, seeing you command respect from people who usually don't give a damn about anyone outside their bubble, it made me realize how blind I've been. You've always been extraordinary. I was just too stupid to notice. Before Maya could respond, the balcony door burst open. There you are! Jennifer Blackwood stumbled out, champagne sloshing in her glass. Marcus Chen and two other men from Ethan's inner circle behind her. We've been looking everywhere. Oh! She stopped, taking in the scene. Are we interrupting? Yes, Ethan said flatly. Perfect timing, actually. Marcus's smile was cruel. We wanted to settle the bet. Ethan, you owe me 30 grand. Your little assistant made it past 8 minutes without embarrassing herself. Barely, but shut up, Marcus! Ethan's voice was ice, but Marcus was drunk enough to be reckless. Oh, come on, the night's over. We can drop the act. Maya, you did great, really. Better than we expected. You almost looked like you belonged. I said shut up. Ethan stepped forward, his body language threatening, but the damage was done. Maya saw the other balcony doors opening, curious faces appearing, people drawn by raised voices, sensing drama. The crowd swelled, 30 people, 40, including Senator Morrison, Claire Hendricks, David Chen, all the people Maya had connected with tonight, all of them now witnessing her humiliation. Jennifer, drunk and oblivious, laughed. Seriously though, Maya, you were a good sport about this. Most people would have just stayed home. Actually, showing up took guts. What bet? Senator Morrison's voice cut through the chatter like a knife. The balcony went silent. It's nothing, Ethan said quickly. It's not nothing. Maya heard herself speak, her voice steady despite the devastation crushing her chest. Mr. Caldwell invited me here as a social experiment. His friends bet money on how quickly I'd embarrass myself. I believe the over-under was 8 minutes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Claire Hendricks' face darkened with fury. Senator Morrison looked disgusted. Ethan, Patricia said coldly, tell me this isn't true. Every eye turned to him. Ethan stood frozen, his face a mask of horror and shame. And in that moment, Maya felt something shift. The humiliation was complete, public, devastating, but she was still standing. It's true, Ethan said hoarsely, and the crowd erupted in outrage. The silence that followed Ethan's confession lasted maybe 3 seconds, but to Maya it felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane, that breathless moment before everything explodes. Then Patricia Morrison's voice cut through the shock like a scalpel. You did what? Ethan turned to face the senator, and Maya watched something she'd never seen before. Genuine fear cross his face. Not the performative concern he showed investors, but real gut-deep terror of a man watching his reputation crumble in real time. Senator, I can explain. Explain? Claire Hendricks stepped forward, her elegant features twisted with disgust. You turned a human being into a gambling opportunity, and you think there's an explanation that makes that acceptable? It wasn't like that, Marcus started, but David Chen cut him off. Then what was it like, Marcus? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a group of grown men bet $30,000 on whether a woman would humiliate herself for your entertainment. David's voice dripped contempt. That's not just cruel, it's pathetic. Jennifer had gone pale, her champagne glass forgotten. We were just joking around. It wasn't serious. $30,000 sounds pretty serious to me, Patricia said icily. And Ms. Brooks, You overheard them planning this. Maya felt every eye on her. Part of her wanted to minimize it, to smooth things over and escape with whatever dignity she had left. But a larger part, the part that had been forged in her mother's hospital room, in 70-hour work weeks, in a lifetime of being underestimated, refused to make this easier for them. Yes, she said clearly. Thursday afternoon. I was delivering updated donor lists for tonight's event. Mr. Caldwell's office door was ajar. I heard everything. And you came anyway? A new voice. Thomas Reeves, CEO of a major pharmaceutical company. Why? Maya turned to face him and the crowd of onlookers that had swelled to at least 60 people. In the ballroom beyond, the orchestra had stopped playing. Everyone was watching now. Because I needed them to be wrong, she said simply. Because I've spent 2 years being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like expensive furniture, and I decided that if they were going to make me a spectacle, I'd control the narrative. By transforming yourself into someone they'd accept? The question came from a younger woman Maya recognized as Sophia Park, founder of a successful biotech startup. No. Maya shook her head. By becoming the most authentic version of myself. Every conversation I had tonight was genuine. Every opinion I shared was my own. I didn't pretend to be anyone else. I just stopped apologizing for being competent. She did more than that. Senator Morrison's expression had shifted from anger to something else. Respect, maybe. Ms. Brooks spent 20 minutes discussing education policy with me. Her insights were sharper than most of my paid advisors. She wasn't performing, she was contributing. Same here, David Chen added. We talked about AI ethics. She challenged 3 of my assumptions and made me rethink my entire approach to algorithmic bias. That's not someone trying to fit in, that's someone who belongs. Maya felt something crack open in her chest. Not pain, but something overwhelming and unexpected. Validation. From people who had no reason to defend her, who gained nothing from taking her side. This is absurd. Marcus's face had gone red. Ethan, are you going to let them crucify us over a harmless bet? Ethan's jaw tightened. For a moment, Maya thought he might actually defend himself, might try to minimize what they'd done. Instead, he turned to Marcus with an expression of pure contempt. Shut your mouth, Marcus, right now. Excuse me? You heard me. Shut up. Go back inside and start drafting your resignation. You too, Jennifer. Anyone who participated in that bet has exactly one option. Resign before I fire you publicly. Shock rippled through the group. Jennifer gasped. Ethan, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. He looked at each of them in turn. What we did was reprehensible, cruel, indefensible. And I won't have people in my company who think it's acceptable to treat another human being like a punchline. He paused, his voice dropping. Especially someone who's been keeping this company running while we patted ourselves on the back for our genius. Marcus laughed, but it was brittle. Right, you're firing us to impress a girl. That's professional. I'm firing you because you're liabilities. Ethan's voice went cold. You think this stays quiet. By Monday morning, every tech blog and business journal will be running stories about Caldwell Industries' toxic culture, about executives who bet on humiliating employees. Our stock will tank, investors will flee, and all of it will trace back to you. The truth of that hit visibly. Marcus's face drained of color. But if we're gone, Jennifer started, if you're gone, the story becomes about swift accountability, about a company that doesn't tolerate harassment. It's still bad, but it's survivable. Ethan pulled out his phone. I'm calling the board president right now. You have until Monday at 9 a.m. to submit resignations. After that, terminations go public with cause. He walked away, already dialing, leaving his former friend staring after him in stunned silence. Maya stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Ethan had just blown up his inner circle. For her. Because of her. She didn't know how to feel about that. Ms. Brooks? Claire Hendricks approached, her expression gentle. I'm so sorry you experienced this. No one should be subjected to such treatment, especially not in the name of charity. She paused. The foundation would like to make a donation in your name. $50,000 to a cause of your choosing. Maya's breath caught. That's incredibly generous, but it's not generosity. It's principle. Claire pressed her business card into Maya's hand. And when you're ready to leave Caldwell Industries, which I imagine might be soon, call me. The Foundation is expanding our policy research division. We need people who understand both the human and systemic sides of healthcare. People like you. More cards appeared. Patricia Morrison, David Chen, Sophia Park, Thomas Reeves. A venture capitalist named Rachel Kim, who'd been watching from the sidelines. You made an impression tonight, Rachel said quietly. The right kind. Don't waste it working for people who don't value you. The crowd began dispersing, conversations fragmenting into smaller groups. Maya heard her name repeated, some in sympathy, some in admiration, some in the gleeful whisper of people who loved watching the powerful fall. She felt exhausted suddenly, the adrenaline that had carried her through the evening finally depleting. Her feet ached in the borrowed heels. Her face hurt from maintaining composure. She wanted to go home, crawl into bed, and process everything that had happened. But first she needed to deal with Ethan. He'd finished his call and was standing alone near the balcony railing, staring out at the city. Maya approached slowly, not sure what to say. That was quite a speech, she finally offered. Ethan turned and she was startled by the raw emotion in his face. It was the truth. They deserve to be fired. Hell, I deserve to be fired. You're the CEO. You can't fire yourself. The board can. He laughed bitterly. And they might, after this. Depends on how the PR plays out. Maya studied him. This man she'd worked beside for over 2 years. She'd thought she knew him. Arrogant, brilliant, occasionally kind, but mostly oblivious. Now she wasn't sure what she was seeing. Why did you really do it? She asked. Fire them, I mean. Was it damage control or actual remorse? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Both, probably. I'd like to say it was purely moral outrage, but I'm not that good a person. He met her eyes. Watching you tonight, seeing how people responded to you, how you commanded respect that I never earned, just inherited through wealth and connections. It made me realize how much I've coasted, how little I've actually built versus what was handed to me. That's quite an epiphany to have on a Saturday night. You want honesty? Here it is. Ethan turned to face her fully. I've been attracted to you for months, maybe longer, but I convinced myself it would be inappropriate, that you were off limits because you worked for me. So I kept you at a distance and told myself it was professionalism when really it was cowardice. Maya's heart stuttered. Ethan, I'm not telling you this because I expect anything, he continued. I know I destroyed any chance of you ever seeing me as anything but the asshole who made you a bet. I just need you to know that the invitation wasn't entirely a joke. Part of me really did want you there. I just let my friends twist it into something cruel because I was too weak to admit I cared what you thought of me. The confession hung between them, raw and complicated. Maya didn't know what to do with it. I need to go, she said quietly. This has been a lot. Of course, let me call you a car. I can manage. She started walking toward the exit, then stopped. Ethan, the policy brief Senator Morrison mentioned, the one on AI and education. What about it? I spent 3 weeks on that, researched everything, wrote every word, revised it 17 times. You submitted it under your name without even reading it. She saw the hit land, saw him flinch. I know, he said hoarsely. I know, and I'm sorry for that and everything else. Maya nodded once, then walked away before her composure could shatter. The lobby was quieter now. Most guests still in the ballroom or clustered in small groups dissecting the scandal. Maya made it outside before the first sob broke free, pressing her hand to her mouth to stifle it. A town car pulled up immediately. Not the one Ethan had sent, but a different service. The driver, an older woman with kind eyes, took one look at Maya's face and simply opened the door. Rough night, honey? Maya laughed through tears. You have no idea. The drive home passed in a blur. Maya stared out the window, watching Seattle slide by, trying to make sense of the wreckage of the evening. She'd won, hadn't she? Proved them wrong, earned respect from people who mattered, even gotten Ethan to face consequences. So why did she feel so hollowed out? Her apartment building appeared too soon. Maya thanked the driver, surprised when the woman refused payment. Already taken care of, she said, then added gently, whatever happened tonight, you survived it. That counts for something. Maya climbed the 3 flights slowly, her body remembering every minute of tension. She unlocked the door as quietly as possible, hoping her mother was asleep. No such luck. Sarah sat in her armchair, wrapped in blankets despite the mild evening, clearly waiting up. She took one look at Maya's face and opened her arms. Maya collapsed into them, the dress crumpling, and finally let herself break. The story poured out between sobs. The evening's triumph, the balcony confrontation, Ethan's confession, the public spectacle. All of it. Sarah held her daughter and stroked her hair and let her purge the overwhelming complexity of emotions. "You did it," Sarah whispered when Maya finally quieted. "Baby, you did exactly what you set out to do. You proved you belonged." "Then why does it feel so awful?" "Because winning doesn't erase the hurt of why you had to fight in the first place." Her mother pulled back, cupping Maya's face. "You're allowed to be angry and sad and confused all at once. You're allowed to wish people had just seen your worth from the beginning instead of making you prove it." Maya nodded, tears still sliding down her cheeks. "I don't know what to do now." "Now you rest. Tomorrow you decide what comes next. But tonight, you let yourself feel everything." Maya changed into pajamas, scrubbed off makeup that had miraculously stayed perfect through everything, and crawled into bed. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion pulled her under within minutes. She woke Sunday morning to her phone vibrating incessantly. 37 missed calls. Over 100 texts. Her email was exploding. With trembling fingers, Maya opened her news app. The top story made her stomach drop. Caldwell Industries rocked by harassment scandal at charity gala. She read in growing horror. Someone had leaked everything. The bet, the public confrontation, Ethan's firing of his executives. Quotes from witnesses, speculation about company culture, photographs of Maya from the event looking poised and elegant next to descriptions of how she'd been targeted. The comment section was vicious and supportive in equal measure. Some called her brave. Others suggested she'd orchestrated the whole thing for attention. Tech Twitter was ablaze with hot takes about toxic workplace culture and class warfare in Silicon Valley. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Maya almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Brooks? This is Diana Torres from the Seattle Times. I'm writing a feature about last night's events and would love to get your perspective." Maya hung up. The phone rang again immediately. A different reporter. Then another. By noon, she'd stopped answering entirely. The voicemails piled up. Journalists, bloggers, even a producer from a national morning show. Everyone wanted her story, wanted to turn her into a symbol or a victim or a villain, depending on their narrative needs. Only a handful of messages mattered. Senator Morrison, checking in and reiterating her job offer. Claire Hendricks, extending an invitation to lunch to discuss opportunities. David Chen, Rachel Kim, and 3 other legitimate professional contacts she'd made at the gala. And 17 messages from Ethan, progressing from professional to desperate. "Maya, please call me. We need to discuss how to handle the media. The board is demanding a statement. I won't speak for you, but we should coordinate. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please don't let reporters twist this into something worse. Maya, I'm worried about you. Just let me know you're okay." The final message had come at 6 a.m. "I'm sorry for everything. You deserved so much better. From me, from everyone. I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but please know that watching you last night changed something in me. You are extraordinary. I'm sorry it took public humiliation for me to see it." Maya set the phone down, her hands shaking. Part of her wanted to call him back, to coordinate their stories and minimize the damage. The professional part. The part that had spent 2 years protecting his interests even when he didn't appreciate it. But a newer, rawer part of her thought. Let it burn. Let people see what happened. Let Caldwell Industries face real consequences. Let Ethan sit with the discomfort of his choices. She was done protecting men who'd never protected her. Monday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a bomb. Maya woke to find her apartment building surrounded by news vans. 3 reporters camped in the lobby. She couldn't leave without running a gauntlet of cameras and shouted questions. So she didn't leave. Instead, she called in sick, the 2nd time in her career, and spent the day fielding calls from her new network. Patricia Morrison offered legal representation if she needed it. Claire's foundation proposed a consulting contract that would pay triple her current salary. Rachel Kim wanted to discuss venture capital opportunities for a startup. Maya hadn't even conceived yet. The most surprising call came Tuesday afternoon. A woman named Doctor, Evelyn Chen, director of a healthcare policy think tank based in Washington, D.C. Ms. Brooks, I've been following your story. More importantly, I've been reading your work. Maya sat up straighter. My work? The policy brief on AI in education. Senator Morrison shared it with several of us. The analysis is exceptional, particularly your section on implementation challenges in underfunded districts. We've been looking for someone who understands both the technical and human elements of healthcare technology policy. A pause. How would you feel about relocating to D.C.? The question knocked the air from Maya's lungs. My mother is sick. I can't leave Seattle right now. We offer full remote work and comprehensive healthcare benefits that cover immediate family members, including experimental treatments. Dr. Chen's voice gentled. Brooks, we've seen what you can do when people actually listen to you. We'd like to give you a platform where your expertise shapes policy, not just supports someone else's vision. Maya closed her eyes, overwhelmed. A week ago, she'd been invisible. Now opportunities were materializing faster than she could process them. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. The offer stands regardless of how the current media circus resolves. The media circus showed no signs of resolving. By Wednesday, 3 major outlets had run features about toxic tech culture using Maya's story as the centerpiece. Caldwell Industries stock had dropped 12%. 2 board members had called for Ethan's resignation, and Maya still hadn't left her apartment. Thursday morning, her mother appeared in her doorway looking frailer than usual, but determined. Baby, you need to make a decision. About what? All of it. The job offers, the media requests, Ethan, your future. You're paralyzed because you're trying to make the perfect choice, but there is no perfect choice. There's just the next right step. Maya pulled her knees to her chest. I don't know what that is. Then let me tell you what I see. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. I see a woman who proved she's brilliant and capable and strong, who earned respect from people who matter, who survived being made into a public spectacle and came out the other side with more opportunities than she started with. I also see a woman who's terrified to take any of those opportunities because she's still thinking like someone who doesn't deserve them. The words hit like a slap. That's not, isn't it? Her mother's gaze was gentle but unflinching. You're hiding in this apartment because you're afraid. Afraid the offers will disappear. Afraid you'll choose wrong. Afraid that if you step into your power, someone will take it away again. Maya felt tears threatening. What if they do? Then you build it back, stronger. Sarah took her hand. Maya, you've been fighting your whole life. For me, for your education, for basic respect at work. When do you get to stop fighting and start building? When do you get to choose what you want instead of just surviving what you're given? The question cracked something open. Maya had been so focused on proving herself, on not being dismissed, that she'd never stopped to ask what she actually wanted her life to look like. I want to matter, she whispered. I want my work to make a difference. I want to use my brain for something more than managing someone else's calendar. Then do it. Take one of these jobs, build something. Stop waiting for permission to be extraordinary when you already are. That afternoon, Maya finally left her apartment. She slipped out the back entrance to avoid reporters, took 3 buses to throw off anyone following, and ended up at a coffee shop in Fremont where nobody knew her face. She ordered a latte, opened her laptop, and started making lists. Jobs offered: Senator Morrison's advisory committee, Claire's foundation, Dr. Chen's think tank, Rachel Kim's venture capital opportunity. 2 other consulting positions. What she wanted: to influence healthcare policy, to make systems work better for people who couldn't afford to fail, to prove that solutions could be both technically sound and humanely implemented. By the time she finished her second coffee, Maya had a plan. She called Dr. Chen first. I'd like to accept your offer with some conditions. I need to stay in Seattle for at least 6 months while my mother completes this treatment cycle. After that, I'm open to relocation depending on her health. I also want to maintain consulting relationships with Senator Morrison's committee and the Children's Medical Research Foundation. Their work aligns with mine. Done, Dr. Chen said immediately. When can you start? 2 weeks. I need to resign properly and transition my current responsibilities. We'll have the contract ready by Monday. Next, Maya called Patricia and Claire, establishing consulting arrangements that would let her contribute to their work while building her new role. Both women were enthusiastic, already planning projects. Finally, she opened her email and composed a message to Caldwell Industries' HR department. Professional, clean, effective immediately after a 2-week notice period. She copied Ethan on it. His response came within 3 minutes. "Can we please talk? In person?" Maya stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to refuse, to let her resignation be the final word. But another part, the part that had spent 2 years working beside him, that had seen glimpses of who he could be beneath the privilege and carelessness, thought he deserved at least a conversation. Friday, 10 a.m. My apartment building lobby. 15 minutes. I'll be there. Friday morning, Maya dressed carefully. Not armor this time, just herself. Jeans, a soft sweater, minimal makeup. She met Ethan in the lobby at exactly 10, surprised to find him looking haggard. His usually perfect appearance was rumpled, shadows under his eyes suggesting he'd slept as poorly as she had. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. 15 minutes, Maya reminded him. Talk. They sat in uncomfortable chairs near the window. Ethan seemed to struggle with where to start. "I accepted your resignation," he finally said. "HR will process it today. You'll get 3 months severance, and your health insurance will continue for 18 months, regardless of employment status." "It's the least I can do." Maya nodded. "Thank you. I also wanted you to know the board decided not to ask for my resignation. Instead, they're requiring I undergo leadership training, establish an independent HR oversight committee, and implement company-wide culture reforms." He laughed bitterly. Apparently firing my entire inner circle demonstrated enough accountability. "Good. The company needs those changes." "I know." He met her eyes. "Maya, I've been trying to figure out how to apologize in a way that means something, but everything I come up with sounds hollow. So I'll just say this. I was wrong about everything. How I treated you, how I let others treat you, how I took your work and passed it off as mine. You deserved respect and recognition, and I gave you neither." "No, you didn't. For what it's worth, I'm trying to do better. The policy brief you wrote? I told the board it was your work. I'm recommending they bring you on as a consultant for future policy initiatives. And I've been going through every project from the last 2 years, identifying what was actually your contribution versus mine. It's humbling. Turns out I've been taking credit for a lot of your genius." Despite everything, Maya felt a flicker of something that might have been respect. That must have been a painful audit. It was necessary. Ethan leaned forward. "I also need to tell you something else, and I need you to believe it's not manipulation or an attempt to change your mind about leaving. Okay? Watching you at that gala, seeing you command respect, hold your own with people I've spent years trying to impress, it wasn't just humbling. It was terrifying. Because I realized that I've been in love with you for months and too much of a coward to admit it." He held up a hand when Maya started to speak. "I know the timing is terrible. I know I have no right to these feelings after what I did, but I can't let you walk away without being honest. You are the most brilliant, resilient, extraordinary person I've ever met. And I wasted 2 years seeing you as convenient instead of essential." Maya sat very still, processing his words. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her thought it was guilt and timing and the intoxicating mix of remorse and attraction. "Ethan," she said carefully, "I don't know what I feel about you anymore. A week ago, I thought I might be falling for you too. Little moments over 2 years, the way you'd smile when I solved a problem, how you'd bring me coffee on late nights, the occasional glimpse of who you are under all the privilege. But then I heard you laugh about betting on my humiliation, and something in me broke." "I know. Let me finish." She held his gaze. "You've apologized. You're making changes. That matters. But it doesn't erase what happened or how it felt. Right now, I need to focus on building a life where my value isn't conditional on someone else's recognition. I need to prove to myself that I can succeed on my own terms." "I understand." Ethan's voice was rough. "For what it's worth, I think you're going to change the world. And I'm sorry I won't be there to see it." "Who says you won't?" Maya stood. "Maybe someday, when I've built something I'm proud of and you've become the leader you're capable of being, we'll run into each other at another gala. And maybe then we'll both be people who deserve each other." She walked away before he could respond, before she could second-guess herself, before the part of her that still cared could change her mind. Her 15 minutes were up. But as Maya climbed the stairs to her apartment, she felt lighter than she had in days. The future was terrifying and uncertain and full of possibility. She had job offers from people who valued her mind. She had her mother's support and her own hard-won confidence. And for the first time in her life, Maya Brooks wasn't fighting for permission to exist in someone else's world. She was ready to build her own. Maya's final 2 weeks at Caldwell Industries passed in a strange blur of efficiency and emotional distance. She arrived each morning at precisely 8:30, completed her transition documentation with meticulous detail, and left at 5 without lingering. No more 70-hour weeks, no more sacrificing her life for a company that had seen her as expendable. Ethan kept his distance, communicating primarily through email with a formality that felt like grief. He approved every transition request without question, signed off on her severance package with additions she hadn't asked for, and made no attempts to change her mind. The few times they passed in the hallway, he looked at her like she was something precious he'd dropped and shattered beyond repair. Maya felt nothing about it. Or perhaps she felt too much and had locked it all away in a box labeled, "Deal with later." Her coworkers' reactions varied wildly. Some avoided her entirely, uncomfortable with the scandal or worried about being associated with her. Others approached with carefully worded support that felt more like curiosity than genuine care. But a handful surprised her. Linda from accounting stopped by her desk on Maya's third-to-last day, setting down a coffee and a bakery bag. "Blueberry scone. Your favorite." Maya looked up, startled. She'd mentioned her favorite pastry exactly once, 18 months ago during a casual conversation. "Linda, you didn't have to. I wanted to." Linda sat in the visitor chair, her usual brisk efficiency softened. "I've worked here for 11 years, Maya. I've watched 3 generations of executive assistants burn out and quit. You lasted longer than any of them because you're brilliant and because you cared more than this place deserved." She paused. "What happened at that gala was horrible. But watching you walk away on your own terms? That's the first time I've seen someone leave Caldwell Industries with their dignity intact." "Thank you," Maya said softly. "That means more than you know." "Where are you going, if you don't mind me asking?" Maya hesitated, then decided Linda had earned honesty. "Healthcare policy think tank in D.C. Remote work for now, possible relocation later, plus consulting for Senator Morrison and the Children's Medical Research Foundation." Linda's face broke into a genuine smile. "Good. You're going to do extraordinary things, Maya. Things that matter more than managing some tech billionaire's calendar." After Linda left, Maya sat staring at the untouched scone, feeling the first crack in the emotional armor she'd built. She'd been so focused on leaving, on moving forward, that she hadn't let herself acknowledge what she was losing. Not the job itself, but the small kindnesses from people like Linda, the familiar rhythm of her days, the strange comfort of knowing exactly what was expected of her. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "How are you holding up?" "Fine. 3 more days. That's not what I asked." Maya smiled despite herself. Her mother had an uncanny ability to see through her deflections, even via text message. "It's harder than I expected. Not the work. The goodbyes. Change is always hard, baby. Even good change, especially good change." That night, Maya came home to find her mother sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by medical bills. Her laptop open to a spreadsheet that Maya recognized, the careful budgeting that had governed their lives for 18 months. "Mom, what are you doing? You should be resting." "Calculating." Sarah looked up, her eyes bright despite the exhaustion that perpetually shadowed them. "Your new salary plus the consulting fees means we can actually afford the experimental treatment, doctor," Rashid mentioned, "the one targeting my specific genetic markers." Maya's breath caught. They'd discussed that treatment 3 months ago and dismissed it as financially impossible. The clinical trial had a $20,000 entry fee, not covered by insurance, not feasible with their current debt. "Mom, we can't." "Yes, we can." Sarah turned the laptop to show her calculations. "If we're careful, if we stick to the budget, the treatment has a 63% success rate for patients in my stage. That's not a guarantee, but it's better odds than we've had in a long time. Maya sank into the chair across from her mother, overwhelmed. When would you start? Dr. Rashid can get me into the next cohort if we commit by the end of the month. 6 weeks of intensive treatment, then maintenance therapy. Sarah reached across the table, taking Maya's hands. I know the timing isn't ideal. You're starting a new job, building a new life. But I need you to know I'm going to fight this, really fight it. Not just for me, but for you. So I can see what you build, who you become. Tears blurred Maya's vision. You're already seeing it. I'm seeing the beginning. I want to be there for the middle and the end, too. Her mother's grip tightened. Promise me something, Maya. Promise me you won't put your life on hold because you're worried about me. Take the opportunities. Build your career, date people, travel, live. That's what keeps me fighting, knowing you're out there becoming everything you're meant to be. I promise, Maya whispered, and meant it. Her last day at Caldwell Industries arrived with unseasonable sunshine, the kind of crystalline September morning that made Seattle look like a postcard. Maya packed her personal items, a photo of her mother, a coffee mug with a sarcastic slogan, the plant she'd kept alive for 2 years despite the office's terrible lighting. Everything fit in one small box. She'd said her goodbyes throughout the week, so the actual departure felt anticlimactic. A final sweep of her desk to ensure nothing was forgotten. A last glance at the office where she'd spent so many hours. Then she picked up her box and walked toward the elevator. Ethan appeared as she reached the doors, slightly breathless like he'd been running. Maya, wait. She turned, finger hovering over the call button. Ethan, I've completed all the transition documents. Everything you need is in the shared drive, organized by priority, and I don't care about the documents. He ran a hand through his hair, that gesture she'd seen 1,000 times when he was trying to find the right words. I couldn't let you leave without saying goodbye properly. We said goodbye last week. We had a 15-minute conversation in your lobby. That's not goodbye. Not for someone who's been the most important person in my professional life for over 2 years. Maya felt something twist in her chest. Ethan, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not asking for anything. I just need to say this. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Thank you. For everything you did for this company. For me. For making me look competent when half the time you were the one actually running things. For staying professional even when I didn't deserve it. For being brilliant and patient and extraordinary every single day. You're welcome, Maya said quietly, because what else could she say? I mean it. Whatever you build next, wherever you go, you're going to be incredible. And I'm sorry I never told you that when it mattered. The elevator dinged, the doors opened. Maya stepped inside, turning to face him. For what it's worth, she said as the doors began to close, you weren't always terrible. You had moments of being almost human. Try to build on those. His surprised laugh was the last thing she heard before the elevator descended, carrying her away from Caldwell Industries for the final time. The weekend passed in a strange limbo. Maya was officially unemployed for the first time since college, her new position not starting until Monday. She spent Saturday helping her mother research the experimental treatment, reading medical journals until her eyes burned, trying to understand the science behind their hope. Sunday, she deep-cleaned the apartment with manic energy, needing to do something physical, while her mind spun with anticipation and fear about the week ahead. Monday morning, Maya woke at 6 despite not having to be anywhere. She made coffee, settled at her kitchen table with her laptop, and at precisely 8 a.m., logged into the healthcare policy think tank system for the first time. Her inbox contained a welcome message from Dr. Evelyn Chen and an invitation to a video call at 9. Maya spent the intervening hour exploring the internal databases, marveling at the scope of research available to her. Years of policy analysis, implementation studies, data on healthcare outcomes across different populations. This was what she'd been craving, access to information that could actually change things. At 9, Dr. Chen's face appeared on her screen, warm and professional. She was in her mid-50s with silver-streaked black hair and the kind of sharp intelligence that radiated even through a video call. Maya, welcome. I hope your first hour of exploration was enlightening. It was overwhelming in the best way, Maya admitted. I've never had access to this caliber of research. You'll have access to much more than research. We're currently advising 3 Senate committees, 2 federal agencies, and a dozen state-level initiatives. Your role will be to bridge the gap between technical innovation and practical implementation. Senator Morrison specifically requested you for the Education Technology Committee, but I'm hoping to also involve you in our healthcare accessibility project. For the next 2 hours, Doctor, Chen walked Maya through active projects, introduced her via video to the team, and outlined expectations. The work was challenging, complex, and exactly what Maya had been hungry for. Real policy with real impact. Problems that required both analytical rigor and human understanding. By lunch, Maya's head was spinning with new information and her heart was racing with excitement. This was right. This was where she was supposed to be. Her afternoon brought her first consulting call with Claire Hendricks from the Children's Medical Research Foundation. Claire's warmth came through even more clearly one-on-one than it had at the gala. Maya, I'm so glad you agreed to work with us. I've been reading your preliminary thoughts on optimizing charitable giving for maximum impact. Your analysis of overhead ratios versus actual program effectiveness is revolutionary. Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about how foundations can measure real outcomes instead of just checking boxes. Which is exactly why I want your input on something. Claire's expression grew more serious. We're redesigning our grant application process. Currently, it favors organizations with dedicated grant writers, which usually means larger, more established groups. But some of the most innovative work happens in small community organizations that can't afford professional grant writers. How do we level that playing field? Maya's mind immediately began working through the problem. What if you separated the application into 2 tracks? A streamlined version for smaller organizations under a certain budget threshold, focusing on demonstrated need and program design rather than polished prose, and a more comprehensive version for larger applicants. You'd need different evaluation criteria for each track, but it would remove the barrier of professional presentation. I love that. Can you draft a proposal? I can have something to you by end of week. As the call ended, Maya realized she was smiling, really smiling. Not the professional mask she'd worn at Caldwell Industries, but genuine joy at being able to contribute ideas that might actually be implemented. Her phone rang almost immediately. Senator Morrison this time. Ms. Brooks, I hope your first day is going well. Senator, it's been incredible, thank you. Excellent. I'm calling because I need your expertise on something urgent. The Education Committee is debating a bill that would fund AI-powered tutoring systems in public schools. The tech companies are promising revolutionary results. The implementation plan is a disaster waiting to happen. Maya pulled up a notepad. What are the major issues? Teacher training is inadequate. Infrastructure requirements are unrealistic for underfunded districts. Data privacy protections are vague at best, and there's no plan for what happens when the pilot funding runs out and schools are stuck with systems they can't maintain. Patricia's frustration was evident. I need someone who can translate these concerns into language that resonates with my colleagues, someone who understands both the technology and the human cost of bad implementation. Send me the bill text and the implementation proposal. I'll have an analysis to you within 48 hours. You're a lifesaver. Also, Maya, welcome to the work that actually matters. The week accelerated from there. Maya fell into a rhythm that felt both exhausting and exhilarating. Mornings dedicated to the think tank's research projects. Afternoons split between consulting calls and policy analysis. Evenings reviewing medical journals about her mother's treatment options. She worked long hours, but they felt different than Caldwell Industries. Every minute served a purpose beyond making someone else look good. By Friday, she'd completed 3 major deliverables: a grant reform proposal for Claire's foundation, a policy analysis for Senator Morrison that apparently made 2 committee members reconsider their positions, and a comprehensive research brief for Dr. Chen on healthcare technology adoption in rural communities. Dr. Chen called her directly after reviewing the rural healthcare brief. Maya, this is publication quality work. I'd like to submit this to Health Affairs if you're comfortable being listed as lead author. Lead author. Her name on research that would be read by policymakers and healthcare administrators across the country. Maya had to sit down. I would be honored. You've earned it. This is exactly the kind of rigorous, humane analysis the field needs. I'm recommending you for a full research director position. It comes with a significant raise and more autonomy. Doctor Chen, I've been here 1 week. And you've already proven you're capable of work that most people take years to develop. Take the weekend to think about it. We'll discuss details Monday. That evening, Maya came home to find her mother in the kitchen actually cooking, something she hadn't had the energy for in months. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the apartment. "What's the occasion?" Maya asked, dropping her bag. "Your first week of being extraordinary in public instead of in secret. I thought it deserved celebration." Sarah turned from the stove, and Maya was struck by how much better she looked. The new anti-nausea medication was working, and the prospect of the experimental treatment had given her something Maya hadn't seen in months: hope. They ate dinner together, and Maya recounted her week, the projects, the praise, the research director offer. Her mother listened with shining eyes, asking questions, celebrating every small victory. "I'm so proud of you," Sarah said when Maya finally paused for breath. "Not just because you're succeeding, but because you're doing work that matters to you. That's the real victory, baby, finding something worth fighting for beyond survival." "Speaking of fighting," Maya said carefully, "have you talked to Dr. Rashid about the treatment timeline?" "I have my first consultation next Thursday. If everything looks good, I'd start the intensive phase the following Monday." Sarah reached across the table. "I'm scared, Maya. I'm excited and hopeful, but I'm also terrified it won't work, that I'll put us through this financial and physical strain for nothing. Then we'll deal with that if it happens. But what if it does work? What if 6 months from now you're in remission and we're planning that trip to Vancouver you've always wanted to take?" Her mother smiled, tears gathering. "Vancouver in the spring, cherry blossoms and ocean views." "Exactly. So let's fight for that." The weekend brought an unexpected delivery, a massive flower arrangement that barely fit through the apartment door. Maya extracted the card with trembling fingers, already knowing who they were from. "Congratulations on your first week of changing the world. You were always meant for more than managing my chaos. Ethan." She should have been angry, should have seen it as manipulation or inappropriate boundary crossing. Instead, she felt a complicated knot of emotions she didn't have names for. Her mother appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised. Those are either from a secret admirer or a man with a guilty conscience. Guilty conscience. "Want to talk about it?" Maya sank onto the couch, staring at the flowers. "I don't know what I want. Part of me thinks he's just trying to assuage his guilt, but part of me remembers that he didn't have to fire his entire inner circle, didn't have to acknowledge my work to the board, didn't have to make any of the changes he's making. And part of you still has feelings for him," Sarah said gently. "Maybe. I don't know. Everything is so complicated right now." "Then don't make it more complicated. Focus on your work, my treatment, building your new life. If Ethan is serious about change, he'll still be there when you're ready. And if he's not, then you'll know he wasn't worth your time." It was good advice. Maya threw herself into work with renewed focus, letting the complexity of policy analysis crowd out the complexity of her feelings. October arrived with rain and falling leaves. Maya's mother started the experimental treatment, which was brutal, despite the optimistic name. The first week left Sarah so exhausted she could barely leave bed. Maya worked from the apartment, stepping away from video calls to hold her mother's hair during bouts of nausea, bringing water and medication on strict schedules, reading aloud from novels when Sarah couldn't sleep. It was the hardest thing Maya had ever done, watching her mother suffer, knowing there was nothing to do but endure and hope. But Sarah faced it with remarkable courage, joking weekly between treatment sessions that at least this time the suffering came with a 63% chance of success. Through it all, Maya continued producing exceptional work. She learned to compartmentalize, mother's illness in one mental box, policy analysis in another. It wasn't healthy long-term, but it kept her functional. Her team at the think tank was understanding when she needed flexibility. Doctor. Chen had been through cancer with her own mother and knew the impossible mathematics of balancing work and caregiving. Claire checked in regularly, not just about projects, but about how Maya was coping. Senator Morrison sent a care package for Sarah with a note saying that anyone raising a daughter like Maya deserved every possible support. 6 weeks into the treatment, Dr. Rashid delivered cautiously optimistic news. Sarah's tumor markers were dropping, not dramatically, but consistently. Her body was responding. "It's early," the doctor cautioned, "but the trajectory is encouraging. Let's continue the protocol and reassess after the full 12-week cycle." Maya cried in the parking lot after that appointment, Great, shaking sobs of relief and residual terror. Her mother was responding. There was hope beyond just wishful thinking. That night, riding the wave of good news, Maya did something impulsive. She texted Ethan for the first time since leaving Caldwell Industries. "Thank you for the flowers. And for the recommendation to the board. I heard they're implementing your culture reform proposals." His response came within minutes. "They are. It's overdue and probably insufficient, but it's a start. How are you?" "Busy. My mom started an experimental treatment. Early signs are positive." "Maya, that's wonderful. I'm so glad." A pause. Then, "I miss you. Not as my assistant, just you." Maya stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed, "I miss you too, but I'm not ready for more than this. Not yet. I understand. I'll wait. However long it takes." She didn't respond to that, but she didn't delete the conversation either. Just let it sit there, a door neither fully closed nor open. November brought the research director promotion, a 20% salary increase, and Maya's first solo presentation to a Senate committee. She stood in front of 12 senators and their aides, presenting her analysis on healthcare technology implementation with a confidence that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Senator Morrison introduced her as one of the brightest policy minds I've encountered in my 20 years in office. Maya saw several senators' eyebrows rise. Patricia Morrison was not known for hyperbole. The presentation went flawlessly. Maya fielded questions with expertise, acknowledged limitations in her research without apologizing for them, and made complex technical concepts accessible without being condescending. When it ended, 3 senators requested follow-up meetings. 2 offered her business cards for future collaboration. As Maya left the building, her phone rang. An unknown DC number. "Mrs. Brooks, this is Congressman Michael Torres. I was in your presentation this morning. Extraordinary work. Thank you, Congressman. I'm assembling a bipartisan task force on rural healthcare access. We need someone who can translate between medical professionals, tech companies, and the communities actually affected. Senator Morrison suggested you'd be perfect. Any interest?" Maya's heart raced. A bipartisan task force meant real influence, the kind of platform where her work could shape federal policy. "Absolutely. I'd be honored." "Excellent. My office will reach out with details. And Ms. Brooks, keep doing what you're doing. The policy world needs more people who actually understand nuance." That evening, Maya celebrated with her mother, who was having a good day. Energy up, nausea manageable, hope tangible. They ordered Thai food and ate it straight from the containers while watching terrible reality TV, laughing at the absurdity after months of medical gravity. "You're building something real," Sarah said during a commercial break. "Not just a career, a legacy, work that will matter long after you're gone." "It's terrifying," Maya admitted. "Every time someone treats me like an expert, part of me still feels like the assistant who wasn't supposed to be in the room. That feeling is called imposter syndrome, and it's a liar." Her mother squeezed her hand. "You've earned every opportunity, every bit of respect. The only difference between now and 6 months ago is that people finally see what I've always known. You're brilliant, capable, and meant for extraordinary things." December arrived with the 12-week treatment milestone. Maya sat beside her mother in Dr. Rashid's office, both of them holding their breath as the doctor reviewed test results. "The tumors have shrunk by 42%, Dr. Rashid said, and Maya felt the world tilt. "Your markers are in the best range we've seen since your diagnosis. Sarah, you're responding exceptionally well." Her mother started crying. Maya started crying. Dr. Rashid handed them tissues with the calm efficiency of someone who delivered life-changing news regularly. "What happens now?" Maya managed to ask. "We continue maintenance therapy, monthly infusions, regular monitoring. If this trajectory holds, we're looking at possible remission within 6 months." The doctor smiled. "I'm very encouraged." Outside the medical center, Sarah pulled Maya into a fierce hug. "We did it, baby. We're actually doing it." "You did it, Mom. You fought. We fought together like we always do." That night, Maya allowed herself to think about the future beyond immediate survival, about her mother healthy, about work she loved, about the possibility of building a life instead of just enduring one, and maybe eventually about a tech billionaire who'd learned what it meant to value people. But that was a question for another day. For now, she had policy briefs to write, a congressional task force to prepare for, and a mother to celebrate. The rest could wait. The congressional task force held its first meeting in early January, and Maya flew to Washington, D.C. for 3 days of intensive policy workshops. It was her first time in the nation's capital since a high school field trip, and everything felt simultaneously surreal and exactly right. The meeting room in the Rayburn House office building was all dark wood and American flags, the kind of space where laws were actually shaped. Maya sat among healthcare executives, rural hospital administrators, tech company representatives, and policy experts whose books she'd read in college. 6 months ago, she would have been taking notes for someone else. Now she was listed on the agenda as a presenter. Congressman Torres opened the session with remarks about bridging the digital divide in healthcare, then turned the floor over to Maya for the opening analysis. She stood, her hands steady on the podium despite her racing heart, and began speaking about the gap between innovation and implementation. We've spent billions developing telemedicine platforms, AI diagnostic tools, and electronic health records, she said, her voice carrying through the room with a confidence she'd earned through months of proving herself. But we've failed to account for the realities of rural infrastructure. 63% of rural areas lack broadband capable of supporting video consultations. 78% of rural hospitals can't afford the IT staff necessary to maintain complex systems. We're creating solutions for problems we think exist while ignoring the actual barriers preventing adoption. She clicked to her next slide, showing a map of broadband deserts overlaid with hospital closures. This isn't a technology problem. It's a resource allocation problem disguised as an innovation challenge. The room was silent when she finished. Then Dr. Margaret Hsu, a healthcare policy professor from Johns Hopkins, started clapping. Others joined until the entire task force was applauding. Congressman Torres smiled. Ms. Brooks, you've just articulated what we've been dancing around for 3 years. Would you be willing to lead the implementation subcommittee? Maya's breath caught. Leading a congressional subcommittee meant her recommendations would directly shape federal policy. Yes, Congressman, I would be honored. The rest of the day passed in a blur of working sessions and networking. Maya exchanged ideas with people whose research had informed her own, debated implementation strategies with hospital administrators who lived the problems she'd been studying, and found herself energized rather than drained by the intensity. During a coffee break, Doctor, Shisu approached her with a thoughtful expression. Maya, may I ask where you did your graduate work? Your analysis has the rigor of someone with formal policy training. I don't have graduate degrees, Maya admitted. Just a BA from community college and a lot of self-education. Dr. Hsu's eyebrows rose. You're kidding. Your methodology is doctoral level. Have you considered pursuing formal credentials? I've thought about it, but between my work and my mother's health, what if the work was the degree? Dr. Hsu pulled out her phone, typing quickly. Hopkins has a professional doctorate program designed for working policy professionals. Your current research could count toward your dissertation. The program is mostly remote with intensive summer sessions. She showed Maya the website. Application deadline is March 1st. I'd be happy to write you a recommendation. Maya stared at the screen, her mind spinning. A doctorate. Formal recognition of the expertise she'd built through sheer determination. The kind of credential that would open doors currently closed to someone without the right academic pedigree. I'll think about it, she managed. Thank you. That evening, Maya video called her mother from her hotel room, still buzzing with the day's possibilities. They want me to lead a subcommittee, Mom. Me. Leading actual congressional policy development. Sarah's face filled the screen, and Maya was struck by how much healthier she looked. The maintenance therapy was working. Color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes held the spark that cancer had dimmed for so long. Of course they do. You're the smartest person in any room you enter. Her mother paused. But I can tell there's something else. What is it? Maya explained Dr. Hsu's suggestion. The doctorate program. The opportunity to formalize her expertise. The tuition is steep, even with the fellowship Dr. Hsu mentioned, and it would mean 3 years of balancing school with work. I don't know if I can manage. Stop, Sarah interrupted gently. Stop finding reasons why you can't. My treatment is working. Our finances are stabilizing. You have a salary that can actually support this. The only question is, do you want it? Did she want it? Maya thought about every meeting where someone had asked about her credentials. Every moment of doubt when imposter syndrome whispered she didn't belong. A doctorate wouldn't silence that voice completely, but it would give her armor against it. Yes, she said quietly. I want it. Then apply. Fight for it. Build it. That's what we do, baby. We build the lives we want instead of accepting the ones we're given. Maya submitted her application to Hopkins in late February, requesting recommendations from Dr. Chen, Senator Morrison, and Dr. Xu. The personal statement asked her to describe her policy philosophy and career goals. Maya wrote about her mother's cancer, about watching healthcare systems fail the people who needed them most, about the night of the gala when she'd decided to stop waiting for permission to matter. She wrote about wanting to build bridges between innovation and implementation, about believing that the best policies emerge from understanding both data and human experience, about refusing to accept that good solutions had to choose between technical excellence and compassionate design. The statement was raw, honest, and probably too personal for academic standards. Maya submitted it anyway. If Hopkins wanted the sanitized version of her story, they weren't the right fit. March brought two major developments. First, her mother's 6-month scans showed continued improvement. The tumors had shrunk by 68%. Dr. Rashid used the word remission for the first time, cautiously but genuinely. Maya cried in the parking lot again, but this time her mother was there to hold her, both of them laughing through tears at the surreal joy of good news after so many months of fear. We're going to Vancouver, Sarah said firmly. As soon as I'm cleared for travel, cherry blossoms and ocean views and the best seafood we can find. Mom, the expense is worth it. Life is worth it. You've spent 3 years putting everything on hold for my health. Time to start living again. The second development came via an email from Hopkins. Congratulations. You've been accepted into the Professional Doctorate in Health Policy program with a full merit fellowship. Maya read the email 4 times before it felt real. Full fellowship meant no tuition. Merit-based meant they valued her work, not just her potential. She was going to be Dr. Maya Brooks. She called Dr. Xu immediately, barely able to form coherent sentences through her excitement. The professor laughed warmly. Maya, your application was one of the strongest we've received in years. The admissions committee was unanimous. Your research is already publication quality. We're just giving you the formal structure to do more of it. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by doing brilliant work and proving that traditional academic pathways aren't the only routes to expertise. We need more people like you in policy, people who understand that theories mean nothing if they don't work in practice. That evening, Maya allowed herself a rare indulgence. She opened a bottle of wine she'd been saving, ordered expensive takeout, and called everyone who mattered to share the news. Her mother, Dr. Chen, who promised to adjust Maya's work schedule to accommodate her coursework. Claire, who insisted on sending a celebration gift. Senator Morrison, who said she'd never doubted Maya would end up with a doctorate, she'd just assumed it would take longer. As the calls ended and the apartment grew quiet, Maya found herself thinking about Ethan. They'd maintained sporadic contact over the past months, occasional texts, never more than surface-level check-ins. He'd congratulated her on the congressional appointment, sent flowers when she mentioned her mother's improving scans, and never once pushed for more than she was willing to give. She opened their message thread and typed, "Got into Hopkins. Professional Doctorate in Health Policy, starting this summer." His response came quickly. "Maya, that's incredible. Congratulations. You're going to change the entire field." Then, after a pause, "I've been following your work. The Rural Healthcare Task Force, your publication in Health Affairs, the education policy reforms you pushed through Senator Morrison's committee. You're doing exactly what you were always meant to do. Thank you. How are the company reforms going?" "Slowly but genuinely. New HR oversight is working. Culture surveys show improvement. I fired 2 more executives last month for behavior that would have been tolerated before." A pause. "I'm trying, Maya, to be someone who deserves the platform I have. That matters." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "I know you're not ready. I know I hurt you in ways that don't heal quickly, but I need you to know, when you are ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here, however long it takes." Maya stared at the message, her chest tight with complicated feelings. Part of her wanted to close that door permanently, to protect herself from the possibility of being hurt again. But another part smaller but growing, wondered what it would look like if they tried again. Not as billionaire and assistant, but as equals. Two people who'd both grown into better versions of themselves. She didn't respond to his declaration, but she didn't shut him down either. Just let it exist. Another door neither closed nor fully open. Spring transformed Seattle with characteristic drama, rain giving way to explosions of cherry blossoms and tulips. Maya's life settled into a new rhythm. Mornings dedicated to her think tank research, afternoons split between congressional task force work and consulting projects, evenings preparing for her Hopkins coursework that would begin in June. Her mother continued to improve. By April, Sarah was strong enough to return to part-time work at the bookstore she'd managed before the diagnosis. Watching her mother regain independence, seeing color return to her life beyond doctor's appointments and treatment schedules, felt like witnessing a resurrection. They took the Vancouver trip in early May, 3 days of exploring the city, eating fresh seafood, and watching cherry blossoms drift across Stanley Park like pink snow. Sarah cried when they reached the seawall, overwhelmed by the simple miracle of being alive and well enough to travel. "A year ago, I wasn't sure I'd see another spring," she said quietly, watching boats drift across the harbor. "Now I'm here with you, planning futures instead of writing goodbyes. It feels impossible." "You fought for this," Maya reminded her. "We both did. We did. And we're going to keep fighting. For good things this time, not just survival. For careers that matter and relationships that feed us and experiences worth having." Sarah turned to her daughter. "Speaking of relationships, have you talked to Ethan lately?" Maya should have known her mother would circle back to that question. Sarah had an uncanny ability to identify unresolved threads in Maya's life. "We text sometimes, nothing serious." "Do you want it to be serious?" "I don't know." Maya watched a seaplane take off from the harbor, graceful despite its improbability. "He's changed, really changed from what I can tell. The company reforms are substantial. He's speaking publicly about toxic workplace culture. He donated $1 million to an organization supporting women in tech." "Those are all good things, but are they enough?" "I don't know if enough is the right framework," Maya said slowly, working through thoughts she'd been avoiding for months. "It's not about whether he's done sufficient penance. It's about whether I can trust him not to hurt me again, whether what we might build together is worth the risk of getting hurt." "And what's your answer?" "I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm ready to find out." Back in Seattle, Maya sent Ethan a different kind of message. "Are you free for coffee next Saturday? I think we should talk. Actually talk." His response was immediate. "Yes, absolutely. Name the place." They met at a small cafe in Capitol Hill, neutral territory far from Caldwell Industries and Maya's apartment. Ethan arrived early, looking nervous in a way Maya had never seen during their years working together. He stood when she entered, then seemed uncertain whether to hug her or shake her hand, settling for an awkward wave. "Hi," he said, and the vulnerability in that single word almost undid her. "Hi." Maya sat across from him, accepting the latte he'd already ordered, her usual, he remembered. "Thank you for meeting me." "Thank you for asking. I wasn't sure you ever would." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down. Maya had planned what she wanted to say, rehearsed it even, but now the words felt insufficient. "I've been watching your work," Ethan finally said. "Not in a creepy way, just you're in the news a lot now. The congressional testimony, the healthcare task force, the Hopkins acceptance. Maya, you're doing exactly what I always knew you were capable of. I'm sorry it took losing you for me to actually see it." "I'm not doing this for your validation," Maya said quietly. "I need you to understand that. I built this career because I needed to prove something to myself, not to you." "I know, and that's what makes it so extraordinary. You didn't need me to give you permission or opportunities. You took them yourself." He leaned forward. "I've been in therapy, if you're wondering. Trying to understand why I treated people the way I did, why I confused control with leadership. My therapist says I have a pathological need to be seen as the smartest person in the room, which made me threatened by anyone who might outshine me. That's a lot of self-awareness. It's humbling and horrible and necessary." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Turns out being a billionaire tech wunderkind didn't prepare me for basic human decency. Who knew?" Despite everything, Maya smiled. Personal growth looks good on you. Does it look good enough to earn a second chance? The question hung between them, enormous and terrifying. Maya wrapped her hands around her latte, gathering her thoughts. I don't know if I can trust you not to hurt me again, she said honestly. Not because you haven't changed, but because I don't know if I can let myself be that vulnerable with someone who's already wounded me so badly. The gala, Ethan, that wasn't just embarrassing, it was shattering. You made me feel small and ridiculous and worthless in front of hundreds of people. I know. Maya, I know, and I'm so sorry. Let me finish. She held his gaze. But I also can't ignore that you've done real work to change. You didn't just apologize and move on. You blew up your inner circle, restructured your entire company, put yourself through therapy, and did all of it without demanding credit or my forgiveness. That matters. Ethan waited, barely breathing. I'm not ready to jump into a relationship, Maya continued, but I'm ready to try being friends. Real friends. Not boss and assistant, not billionaire and charity case. Equals who respect each other and see what develops naturally. I can work with that. Relief flooded Ethan's face. Whatever you need, whatever pace works for you. I'm just grateful you're willing to try. They talked for 2 hours, conversation flowing more easily than it ever had during their Caldwell Industries days. Ethan told her about the company changes, the challenges of rebuilding a culture that had been toxic for years, his genuine fear that he'd permanently damaged his reputation. Maya shared stories about her mother's recovery, the terror and joy of the congressional work, her excitement about Hopkins. When they finally left the cafe, Ethan walked her to her bus stop despite having his car parked nearby. Can I take you to dinner next week? He asked. As friends, no expectations beyond good food and conversation. Maya considered, then nodded. Dinner works, but I'm paying for myself. I wouldn't have it any other way. Summer arrived with Maya's first intensive session at Hopkins. 2 weeks in Baltimore, living in graduate student housing and immersing herself in policy methodology, statistical analysis, and healthcare economics. The coursework was rigorous, the expectations high, but Maya thrived in the academic environment. Her cohort was a mix of mid-career professionals from various fields, a hospital administrator from rural Montana, a pharmaceutical researcher from Boston, a public health official from Los Angeles. They bonded over late-night study sessions and shared frustration with theoretical frameworks that ignored practical realities. On the final night, Maya's study group went out to celebrate surviving their first intensive. Over drinks, the hospital administrator, a woman named Jennifer Martinez, asked the question that had been circling the group all week. So, how did you end up in policy? Most of us have pretty traditional paths. You're the outlier. Maya found herself telling the story, not the sanitized version she used professionally, but the real one. Her mother's cancer, Caldwell Industries, the gala that changed everything. Her voice stayed steady, even discussing the betting pool, the public humiliation, the decision to build something on her own terms. The table was silent when she finished. Holy shit, the pharmaceutical researcher breathed. Maya, you're a badass. Jennifer shook her head in amazement. Most people would have given up, taken the settlement, found another assistant job, played it safe. You turned public humiliation into a congressional appointment and a doctorate. I didn't really have a choice, Maya said. Giving up meant watching my mother die and hating myself for being too afraid to fight. This was the only path forward. There's always a choice, the public health official said quietly. You chose to be brave. That's not nothing. Flying back to Seattle, Maya reflected on how much her story had changed in less than a year. It was no longer defined by what had been done to her, but by what she'd built in response. The humiliation at the gala was still part of her narrative, but it was the prologue now, not the whole story. Her mother met her at the airport, looking healthier than she had in years. Sarah had been cleared by Dr. Rashid to declare official remission the week before. No guarantees of permanence, but stable enough to plan for futures beyond the next scan. How was it? Sarah asked as they drove home. Intense, challenging, perfect. Maya smiled. I belong there, Mom, not because I'm pretending or performing, but because the work I'm doing matters, and I'm good at it. I never doubted it for a second. That evening, Maya met Ethan for their 5th dinner in as many weeks. They'd fallen into an easy pattern. Once a week, different restaurants, conversations that ranged from professional to personal. Slowly, carefully, they were building something that felt like genuine friendship. Tonight, they'd chosen a small Italian place in Fremont. Ethan was already seated when Maya arrived, and he stood with a smile that made her heart do complicated things. How was Baltimore? Exhausting and wonderful. I survived my first intensive, which apparently means I can survive anything. I never doubted it. Ethan waited until she was seated before sitting himself, a small courtesy that Maya appreciated. I have news, actually. The board approved a major initiative I've been pushing. We're creating a scholarship fund for community college students interested in tech policy. Full ride, guaranteed internships, and job placement assistance. Maya's breath caught. Ethan, that's why? Because you shouldn't be an outlier. Community college students are just as brilliant as Ivy League grads. They just don't have the same access to opportunities. I want to change that. He paused. I'm naming it the Sarah Brooks Scholarship Fund, if your mother agrees, for women overcoming significant obstacles to pursue careers in tech and policy. Tears blurred Maya's vision. You want to name a scholarship after my mother? I want to honor the woman who raised someone extraordinary enough to change my entire worldview, if she's comfortable with it. Maya reached across the table, taking his hand without thinking. She'll be honored. Ethan, this is... Thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance to do better, to be better. They held hands across the table, and Maya felt something shift. Not dramatic, not sudden, but definite. The walls she'd built around her heart since the gala weren't crumbling, but a door was opening, slowly, carefully, but opening. I'm proud of you, she said quietly, for doing the hard work of actually changing instead of just apologizing. I'm proud of you for building a life that doesn't need me in it. It makes me want to earn a place there, rather than assuming I deserve one. The rest of dinner passed in comfortable conversation, and when Ethan walked her to her car afterward, Maya led him. They stood in the parking lot, Seattle's summer twilight painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Can I be honest about something? Ethan asked. Always? I'm falling in love with you, not the version I worked with for 2 years, the one I took for granted. The you I'm getting to know now. Brilliant, fierce, uncompromising. Every dinner makes it harder to maintain the fiction that we're just friends. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Ethan, I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not asking for anything to change. I just needed you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, my feelings aren't ambiguous. I want to build a life with you, as equals, as partners, however that looks. Maya stood on her toes and kissed him, gentle, brief, but deliberate. When she pulled back, Ethan looked stunned. I'm not ready for everything, she said softly, but I'm ready for this, for trying, for seeing what we might build together if we do it right this time. Ethan cupped her face with trembling hands. We'll do it right, I promise. Whatever pace you need, whatever boundaries you set, I'll respect all of it. Good, Maya smiled, because I have a lot of boundaries and very high expectations. I wouldn't want it any other way. They kissed again, longer this time, and Maya felt the last piece of armor around her heart begin to dissolve. This was terrifying and right, and nothing like she'd imagined. Not a fairy tale rescue, but two broken people choosing to heal together. Whatever came next, they'd face it as equals. And that made all the difference. The next 6 months unfolded with a careful deliberateness that Maya had never experienced in a relationship. She and Ethan built their connection like architects rather than romantic fools, with intention, communication, and an acute awareness of the foundation that had crumbled before. They established rules early. No public displays until they were both certain this was sustainable. No professional entanglements that could create power imbalances. Complete transparency about feelings, fears, and boundaries. And most importantly, Maya's career and her mother's health remained her first priorities. Ethan was invited into her life, not placed at the center of it. To his credit, Ethan never pushed against these boundaries. When Maya needed to cancel dates for her mother's appointments or congressional deadlines, he responded with understanding rather than resentment. When she pulled back emotionally after difficult therapy sessions exploring her trust issues, he gave her space without making it about his needs. You're different than you used to be, Maya observed one evening in August. They were at his penthouse, the first time she'd been there since leaving Caldwell Industries, cooking dinner together like normal people rather than billionaire and former assistant. Ethan looked up from chopping vegetables, considering her words. Different how? Present. Before, you were always performing, the brilliant CEO, the tech visionary, whatever role the situation demanded. Now, you're just you, even when that version isn't impressive. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. And yes, a compliment. The version of you trying to be impressive all the time was exhausting to be around. This version is actually likable. Ethan laughed, and Maya realized how much she'd missed that sound. Genuine amusement rather than polite social laughter. My therapist would love to hear you say that. We've spent months working on me being comfortable with ordinariness. You're a billionaire tech CEO. I'm not sure you'll ever be ordinary. No, but I can be ordinarily human. Make mistakes without catastrophizing. Have needs without apologizing. Be vulnerable without seeing it as weakness. He set down the knife, turning to face her fully. Maya, do you know what the hardest part of therapy has been? What? Accepting that being wealthy and successful doesn't make me inherently better or more valuable than anyone else. That I'm not entitled to respect or love just because of what I've built. That if people like you, it needs to be because of who I am, not what I have. Maya crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. I like who you're becoming. The person who admits when he's wrong, who listens more than he talks, who sees his privilege as responsibility rather than birthright. That person is worth knowing. Even after everything? Especially after everything. Anyone can be decent when it costs them nothing. You're choosing to be better when it requires actually changing. That takes courage. They kissed, and Maya marveled at how different this felt from the desperate attraction she'd harbored during her Caldwell Industries days. That had been infatuation mixed with power dynamics and impossible longing. This was something steadier, built on mutual respect and hard-won trust. Her mother's reaction to the relationship had been characteristically direct when Maya finally told her in July. Are you happy? Sarah had asked, setting down her tea with deliberate care. I think so. It's complicated, but yes. Are you happy because of him, or happy in spite of him? The distinction mattered. Maya had thought about it carefully before answering. Neither. I'm happy with the life I've built. He's part of that life now, but not the foundation of it. If things ended tomorrow, I'd be sad, but not destroyed. Does that make sense? Sarah had smiled with visible relief. Perfect sense. That's exactly how it should be. You've built something so strong that another person can only add to it, not complete it. That's when you know you're ready for real partnership. By September, Maya's life had settled into a rhythm that felt almost sustainable. Her congressional work was producing tangible results. 3 of her policy recommendations had been incorporated into pending legislation. Her research at the think tank had been published in 2 major journals. Hopkins had invited her to present at their annual policy symposium, and her consulting work with Claire's Foundation had helped restructure their grant process in ways that were already increasing applications from smaller community organizations by 43%. The Sarah Brooks Scholarship Fund launched in October with a gala that dwarfed the event where everything had begun. This time, Maya stood beside Ethan as an equal, not an assistant hoping not to embarrass herself. This time, when senators and tech executives approached her, it was to discuss her work, not make polite conversation. Sarah attended as the guest of honor, radiant in a dress Maya had insisted on buying, her hair grown back in soft silver curls after the treatment ended. Watching her mother laugh with Congressman Torres about rural healthcare challenges, seeing her vibrant and engaged and alive, Maya felt something loosen in her chest that had been tight for years. During the scholarship announcement, Ethan spoke about the importance of creating pathways for non-traditional students. Then he surprised everyone by inviting Maya to the stage. When I started Caldwell Industries, he said, his voice carrying through the ballroom, I believed success came from being the smartest person in the room. I hired people who made me look good, who validated my ideas, who never challenged my assumptions. It took losing the most brilliant person I'd ever met to realize how catastrophically wrong I was. Maya stood beside him, heart pounding, having no idea where this was going. Maya Brooks taught me that real intelligence isn't about always being right. It's about asking better questions, listening to perspectives different from your own, and having the courage to admit when you're wrong. She also taught me that the people we overlook, the assistants, the community college graduates, the ones working 3 jobs to afford their education, are often the ones with the most valuable insights because they understand what it costs when systems fail. He turned to face her directly. This scholarship exists because you showed me what's possible when we stop gatekeeping opportunity and start investing in people based on their potential rather than their pedigree. Thank you for being patient enough to let me learn that lesson. The ballroom erupted in applause. Maya blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the full circle symmetry of standing in a space like this, being honored rather than humiliated. Later that evening, after most guests had departed, Maya found her mother on one of the balconies overlooking the city, the same balcony where everything had exploded a year ago. "Strange being back here," Sarah said quietly. "Very strange. Last time I was on this balcony, I thought my life was ending. And now? Now I think it was just beginning." Maya joined her mother at the railing. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Hopkins wants me to relocate to DC after I finish my coursework. Full-time research director position for a new healthcare policy center they're launching. It's everything I've been working toward." Sarah turned, her expression unreadable. "That's wonderful, baby. When would you start?" "Next summer? After I complete my second intensive session." Maya hesitated. "I know you're in remission now, but I'm still worried about leaving you." "Stop." Her mother's voice was firm. "Maya, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to really hear me. I am proud beyond words of everything you've built, and I will not let you put your career on hold because you're worried about me. I'm healthy. I have friends, a job I love, a life that's full. You need to go to DC and do the work you're meant to do. But what if something happens? Then I'll call you, and you'll come home, and we'll deal with it together, just like we always have." Sarah took Maya's hands. "I didn't fight this hard to survive so I could watch you limit yourself out of fear. I fought so I could see you soar. Don't take that away from me." Maya pulled her mother into a fierce hug, both of them crying and laughing simultaneously. "I love you so much," Maya whispered. "I love you too. Now go find that man of yours and celebrate. You've earned it." Maya found Ethan in the lobby, talking with Senator Morrison about upcoming legislation. When he saw her approach, he excused himself immediately. "Everything okay?" he asked, noting her tear-stained face. "Everything is perfect. Walk with me." They left the hotel, wandering through Seattle's downtown in the cool October night. Maya told him about the DC offer, watching his face carefully for signs of resistance or manipulation. Instead, he smiled. "Maya, that's incredible. The position sounds perfect for you. You're not upset? We've just started figuring this out, and I'd be moving across the country. I'm not upset. I'm proud of you." Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her. "Look, I won't pretend long distance doesn't scare me, but I'm not going to ask you to choose between your career and our relationship. That's exactly the kind of dynamic that destroyed things before. So what do? We figure it out. I can work remotely more than I currently do. DC is a 6-hour flight, not another planet. We make it work because you're worth the effort." He cupped her face gently. "Maya, I fell in love with your ambition and brilliance. I'm not going to punish you for living up to your potential." She kissed him right there on the sidewalk, not caring who saw. This was what partnership looked like, not someone asking her to be smaller to fit their life, but someone willing to reshape their life to support her growth. The next several months passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Maya defended her preliminary dissertation proposal in November, a comprehensive analysis of healthcare technology implementation in underserved communities. Her committee called it groundbreaking. Dr. Sue said it would fundamentally shift how policymakers thought about innovation adoption. December brought her 1-year anniversary of leaving Caldwell Industries. Maya marked it quietly, reflecting on everything that had changed. A year ago, she'd been terrified and humiliated, unsure if she'd made the right choice in walking away. Now she was completing a doctorate, shaping federal policy, and in a relationship built on mutual respect rather than power imbalance. She and Ethan spent Christmas with her mother, the 3 of them cooking together in Sarah's small apartment, laughing over terrible holiday movies and sharing stories. Watching Ethan help her mother in the kitchen, seeing him treat Sarah with genuine warmth rather than performative charm, Maya felt the last of her reservations dissolve. This was real. They were building something that could last. In January, Congressman Torres's task force published their rural healthcare recommendations, with Maya credited as lead researcher. 3 major news outlets ran features about her work. NPR requested an interview. The American Medical Association invited her to keynote their annual policy conference. Maya Brooks, former assistant who'd been made into a betting pool, was becoming one of the most influential voices in healthcare policy. The symmetry was almost poetic. February brought her second intensive at Hopkins, and this time Ethan flew to Baltimore for the final weekend. He'd never seen her in full academic mode, presenting research, debating methodology, completely in her element. Watching from the back of her presentation, he looked at her with such open admiration that Maya's study group teased her mercilessly afterward. "That man is completely gone for you," Jennifer Martinez observed over drinks. "Like embarrassingly, publicly, write poetry about you gone." Maya laughed, but her chest felt warm. "It's still strange sometimes being with someone who actually sees me. Really sees me. Get used to it. You deserve nothing less." That evening, she and Ethan walked along Baltimore's Inner Harbor, watching boats drift past in the winter twilight. "I have something to ask you," Ethan said, his voice nervous in a way she rarely heard. "And I need you to know there's no pressure, no expectation. If you say no, nothing changes between us." Maya's heart started racing. "Okay? Move in with me. Not now. Not until you're ready to relocate to D.C. But when you do move, don't get your own place. Come home to me." He pulled her to a stop, taking both her hands. "I want to wake up next to you. I want to cook terrible dinners together and argue about policy over breakfast and build a life that's ours, not mine with you visiting." "Ethan, before you answer, let me finish. I know you need independence, so we'll structure it as real partnership. Both our names on the lease, split expenses, your space to work and my space to work. I'm not asking you to fit into my life. I'm asking if we can build a shared life together." Maya thought about the small apartment she'd been planning to rent in D.C., practical, affordable, lonely. Then she thought about building something with Ethan, not losing herself in his world, but creating a world they both inhabited as equals. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want that." Ethan's face transformed with joy. He kissed her deeply, and Maya felt like they were writing the beginning of something rather than recovering from an ending. Spring arrived with Maya's acceptance of the D.C. position and preparation for the move. She gave her Seattle apartment to a young policy researcher just starting out, the same way someone had given her opportunities when she needed them. She spent long weekends packing, saying goodbye to the city that had shaped her, preparing for the next chapter. Sarah threw her a small going-away party in April, inviting everyone who'd been part of Maya's transformation. Dr. Chen, who'd given her the first real opportunity. Senator Morrison, who'd believed in her expertise. Claire Hendricks, who'd turned outrage into advocacy. Linda from Caldwell Industries, who'd shown small kindnesses when they mattered most. "Speech," someone called, and Maya found herself standing in her mother's living room, surrounded by people who'd changed her life. "A year and a half ago," she began, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her, "I overheard people I worked for making bets on whether I'd embarrass myself at a charity gala. In that moment, I had 2 choices, shrink away or prove them catastrophically wrong. I chose to fight." She looked around the room, meeting eyes. "But I didn't fight alone. Every person here gave me opportunities, support, and belief when I needed it most. You saw potential where others saw an assistant. You offered chances when I had nothing but determination and a community college degree. You taught me that expertise doesn't require the right pedigree, just the right combination of work ethic and opportunity." Her voice caught. "I'm moving to D.C. to do work that matters, to shape policy that will help people like my mom, like the version of me who couldn't afford proper health care or education. And I'm taking all of you with me, every lesson, every opportunity, every moment of faith you showed in me. Thank you for seeing me before I saw myself." The room erupted in applause. Her mother was crying. Maya was crying. Even Dr. Chen looked suspiciously misty-eyed. Later, after guests had left, Maya sat with her mother in the quiet apartment. "Are you scared?" Sarah asked. Terrified. "What if I fail? What if Hopkins was a fluke and I can't actually do the work at this level consistently?" "Then you'll figure it out, same as you always have. Maya, you've spent your whole life exceeding expectations. Trust that you didn't get here by accident." Her mother paused. "Are you happy? Really happy?" Maya considered the question honestly. "Yes. For the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving or proving something. I'm building a life I actually want. Work that matters, a relationship based on respect, opportunities I've earned. It's not perfect, but it's mine. That's all I ever wanted for you." The move to DC happened in late May, a chaotic blur of cross-country flights and furniture coordination. Ethan had found them an apartment in Georgetown, a historic building with exposed brick and enough space for 2 home offices. He'd insisted Maya choose all the furniture for the shared spaces, making it clear this was their home, not his with her added. The first night in the apartment, they ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor surrounded by unpacking boxes, too exhausted to find plates. "Welcome home," Ethan said, raising his beer bottle in a toast. "Home," Maya repeated, and the word felt right. Not his home or her home, but theirs. June brought her official start at Hopkins' new healthcare policy center. She had a team of 3 researchers, a budget that made her slightly dizzy, and the freedom to pursue the questions that had driven her work from the beginning: how to make innovation actually serve the people who needed it most. Her first major project focused on rural telemedicine implementation, building on the Congressional Task Force work. She traveled to Montana, Mississippi, and Maine, talking to doctors, patients, and community health workers about what actually worked versus what sounded good in policy papers. The research was exhausting and exhilarating. Maya came home each evening with stories about people who'd been failed by systems designed without their input, about the gap between innovation and access, about solutions that required listening before prescribing. Ethan listened to every story, asked thoughtful questions, and never once made it about him. He was building something too, restructuring Caldwell Industries to prioritize social impact alongside profit, funding initiatives that created genuine opportunity rather than performative charity. They were both doing the work of becoming people who deserved the platforms they had. In August, Maya presented her preliminary findings at a national healthcare conference. The audience included hospital executives, insurance companies, tech innovators, and patient advocates. She spoke about the mythology of technological solutions, about how often innovation served the innovators rather than the people who needed help. "We've created incredible tools," she said, her voice carrying through the conference hall with hard-won confidence. "Telemedicine platforms, AI diagnostics, electronic health records. But we've failed to ask whether these tools serve the people who need them most, or just the people who can afford to access them. Real innovation isn't creating the flashiest technology. It's ensuring that technology reaches the grandmother in rural Montana who needs to see a cardiologist, but lives 4 hours from the nearest hospital." The presentation ended with a standing ovation. Afterward, a woman approached her, late 50s, wearing a hospital badge from a small town in Wyoming. "Ms. Brooks, I'm Dr. Rachel Kim. I run a rural health clinic. Everything you described, the implementation gaps, the infrastructure challenges, the disconnect between policy and practice, that's my daily reality. Would you consider consulting with us? We need someone who actually understands our world." Maya exchanged contact information, her heart full. This was why she'd fought through the humiliation and self-doubt and fear. To do work that helped people like Dr. Kim serve patients who'd otherwise fall through the cracks. September brought an unexpected invitation. The Grandview Charity Gala was happening again, and the planning committee wanted Maya as a keynote speaker. The irony was almost too perfect. "You don't have to," Ethan said when she showed him the invitation. "If it's too painful going back there." "It's not about pain anymore," Maya interrupted. "It's about showing how much has changed. Last year I walked into that room trying to prove I deserved to exist there. This year I walk in as someone reshaping the entire field they claim to support. That's not painful, that's poetic." She accepted the invitation. The night of the gala, Maya dressed in a different emerald gown. This one custom-made because she could afford it now, because she'd earned the right to wear something created specifically for her. Her mother flew in from Seattle to attend, healthy and radiant. Ethan wore a tuxedo and looked at Maya like she'd hung the moon. They arrived together, walking into the Grandview Hotel ballroom where everything had fallen apart and somehow come together. The room looked the same, marble and crystal, old money and new, power concentrated in evening wear. But Maya was different. She wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. She'd already proven everything that mattered. The keynote came after dinner. Maya stood at the podium looking out at 500 faces, many of which had witnessed her humiliation a year and a half ago. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady. "Some of you may remember me from a previous gala. I attended as an assistant, overheard myself being made into a betting pool, and had my humiliation become public entertainment. It was one of the worst nights of my life." Uncomfortable shifting in the audience, she let the silence build. It was also the night that changed everything, because that humiliation forced me to ask questions I'd been avoiding. Why was I accepting treatment that diminished me? Why was I waiting for permission to use my expertise? Why was I making myself small to fit into spaces that should have expanded to include me? She clicked to her first slide. Not statistics, but a photo of her mother in the hospital during treatment. "This is my mom, Sarah. 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. Our healthcare system is designed to be navigated by people with resources, time, money, education, energy. My mother had none of those. She had me, working 70-hour weeks to keep insurance coverage while researching treatment options she couldn't afford. We are not an unusual story. We're the default story for millions of Americans." The next slide showed the Scholarship Fund logo. The Sarah Brooks Scholarship Fund exists because someone finally asked what would happen if we invested in people based on their potential rather than their pedigree. If we created pathways for community college students, for people working 3 jobs, for the ones we habitually overlook because they don't fit our narrow definition of excellence. She talked about the work she'd done over the past 18 months, the policy reforms, the research, the gaps she'd identified between innovation and implementation. She spoke about the rural doctors she'd met, the patients who'd been failed by systems designed without their input, the communities doing more with less because they had no other choice. Real change doesn't come from creating flashier technology or more exclusive opportunities, Maya concluded. It comes from asking who we're leaving behind and then redesigning systems to include them. It comes from recognizing that the people we overlook often have the most valuable perspectives because they understand what it costs when we get it wrong. She paused, meeting eyes across the room. "I'm grateful for the night that humiliated me because it forced me to stop accepting scraps and start demanding a seat at the table. But I'm more grateful for every person who helped me build that table myself, who gave opportunities, who believed in potential, who understood that expertise doesn't require the right credentials, just the right combination of determination and chance." The applause started before she finished, building to a standing ovation. Maya saw Claire Hendricks crying, Patricia Morrison beaming with pride, Dr. Chen nodding with satisfaction. She saw her mother in the front row, radiant with joy, and she saw Ethan, watching her with a love so transparent it should have embarrassed him, clearly not caring who knew. After the speech, people surrounded her, tech executives wanting to fund her research, policymakers requesting consultation, journalists asking for interviews. Maya handled it all with grace, but she was searching the crowd for one person. She found Ethan on the same balcony where he'd confessed his feelings a year and a half ago. He stood at the railing looking out at Seattle's lights. "You were magnificent in there," he said without turning. "Thank you." Maya joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Strange being back here." "Very strange. Last time we were on this balcony, I was telling you I'd fallen in love with you and terrified you'd never forgive me." "I remember." Maya turned to face him. "You know what's different now?" "What?" "I'm not scared anymore of trusting you, of building something together, of letting myself be vulnerable. You've earned that trust." Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket, and Maya's breath caught. "I was going to wait," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Plan something elaborate, make it perfect. But standing here watching you own that room, seeing you become everything you were always meant to be, I can't wait anymore." He opened the box, revealing a ring that was elegant and understated, nothing like the ostentatious displays of wealth she'd expected from billionaire proposals. Maya Brooks, you're the most extraordinary person I've ever met. You've taught me what partnership means, what real strength looks like, what it costs to build something meaningful. I don't want to complete you or rescue you or any of that romantic nonsense. I want to walk beside you while we both become better versions of ourselves. Will you marry me? Maya looked at the ring, at Ethan's hopeful face, at the city spread below them. A year and a half ago, she'd stood in this space watching her world collapse. Now she was standing in the same space watching it expand beyond anything she'd imagined. Yes, she said, and the word felt like freedom rather than surrender. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and Maya tasted salt. Her tears or his, she couldn't tell. Behind them, the balcony doors opened and her mother appeared, clearly having been watching for the right moment. Well? Sarah demanded. Maya held up her hand, showing the ring. Her mother shrieked with joy, pulling them both into a fierce hug. About time, Sarah said, laughing through tears. I was starting to think you two would dance around this forever. They went back inside together, and Maya was immediately surrounded by congratulations. Patricia Morrison hugged her tightly. Claire Hendricks insisted on planning an engagement party. Dr. Chen made her promise to finish her dissertation before getting distracted by wedding planning. Later that night, back in their Georgetown apartment with the gala behind them and their future stretching ahead, Maya and Ethan sat on their couch drinking champagne straight from the bottle. I have something to tell you, Maya said. Hopkins offered me a permanent position, full professor with tenure track. I'd be the youngest person in the department's history. Maya, that's incredible. Are you going to take it? I don't know yet. It's everything I've been working toward academically. But I'm also loving the direct policy work, the congressional consulting, the foundation projects. I'm not sure I want to be purely academic. So don't choose, Ethan said simply. Build something hybrid. Teach part-time, research part-time, consult part-time. Create the career you actually want instead of fitting into someone else's definition of success. Maya kissed him. How did you get so wise? I learned from the best. You've been teaching me for years that the only wrong path is the one you choose because someone else expects it. They talked late into the night about possibilities and dreams and the life they wanted to build. Not perfect, not without challenges, but theirs. Chosen deliberately, built intentionally, shaped by everything they'd learned about partnership and respect and growth. 6 months later, Maya defended her dissertation to a packed room of academics, policymakers, and practitioners. The title was Bridging Innovation and Implementation, a Framework for Healthcare Technology Policy in Underserved Communities. It was brilliant, comprehensive, and immediately slated for publication as a book. Dr. Maya Brooks graduated in May, walking across the stage to receive her doctorate, while her mother Ethan and half the healthcare policy establishment cheered. She was 28 years old, had reshaped federal policy, published groundbreaking research, and built a career that mattered. The wedding happened in June, small and intimate by Billionaire standards. 50 people in a garden overlooking Puget Sound, her mother as maid of honor, vows they'd written themselves focusing on partnership and growth rather than completion and rescue. I promise to support your dreams even when they scare me, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. To celebrate your successes without needing credit. To respect your independence while building our interdependence. To be your partner in every sense, equal, committed, and endlessly grateful you gave me the chance to deserve you. Maya's vows were simpler. I promise to trust you with my vulnerability and to expect you to earn that trust daily. To build a life with you, not for you. To love you not despite our complicated beginning, but because we've both done the work to transform it into something worth keeping. You are my partner, my equal, and my choice. Every day, my choice. They kissed as husband and wife, and Maya thought about the night that had broken her open, the humiliation that had forced her to rebuild herself stronger, the betting pool that had led to a doctorate, a career reshaping healthcare policy, and a partnership built on genuine respect. She'd wanted them to be wrong about her. Instead, she'd proven they were irrelevant. 2 years later, Maya stood in her office at the new Healthcare Innovation and Policy Institute, a center she'd founded with funding from Caldwell Industries, the Children's Medical Research Foundation, and 3 other major donors. The walls were covered with photos documenting their work. rural doctors they'd trained, communities they'd served, policies they'd shaped. Her team had grown to 12 researchers. They'd published 17 policy papers, influenced 4 major pieces of legislation, and trained hundreds of healthcare administrators in equitable technology implementation. The work was exhausting and meaningful, exactly what Maya had been fighting for. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Flight lands at 6. Dinner at that place you love?" Maya smiled, typing back, "Perfect. Mom's joining us." Her scans came back clear again. 3 years of remission. 3 years of Sarah Brooks thriving, traveling, living the life she'd fought so hard to reclaim. As Maya packed up for the evening, she paused at the window overlooking the DC skyline. Somewhere out there, people were being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed as not quite good enough. She knew that feeling intimately, knew what it cost and what it took to overcome. Her work wasn't finished, would probably never be finished, but she was building something that mattered, surrounded by people who valued her expertise, married to a man who celebrated her success rather than feeling threatened by it. The girl who'd been made into a betting pool was gone. In her place stood Dr. Maya Brooks, policy expert, researcher, advocate, and living proof that the people we underestimate are often the ones who change everything. She'd wanted to prove she belonged. Instead, she'd built a world where belonging wasn't something to prove, but something to create, expand, and share with everyone who'd been told they weren't enough. That was the real victory. Not fitting into their world, but building one that was better. And every day, she chose to keep building.